Chapter 1097. The Spy Game has started. Chapter 1097. The spy game has started. After departing from the secret hideout of the Vilnius gang, Elmer mounted his white-maned horse and made his way straight toward Durin. To conceal his identity, he shrouded his face beneath a hood and added a fake beard on top for good measure. Durin was currently engrossed in its harvest festivals, and the orc guards stationed at the city gates were not overly diligent in scrutinizing every incoming visitor. With this advantage, Elmer passed through the gates unobstructed. N-O/V//E/L-B/1 nonce inside the city, he steered his horse in the direction of a peaceful park situated on the eastern side of Durin. As Elmer dismounted his horse and made his way into the park, he couldn't help but overhear the hushed conversations of the city's citizens. It seemed the recent Ridion Funds heist and the exploits of the Vilnius gang were the hot topics of discussion. Did you hear about that heist at Ridion Funds? They say the Vilnius gang pulled it off. Unbelievable. How did they manage to break into such a well-guarded place? The security there must be incompetent. You'd think the guards would be better trained. This is an embarrassment to the city. Elmer continued to listen to the disgruntled chatter as he strolled deeper into the park, keeping his true identity and purpose well hidden. Elmer eventually reached the park, finding it to be a serene and tranquil place, a stark contrast to the turmoil of the city. The park was adorned with a picturesque pond at its center, where ducks glided gracefully on its glassy surface. A majestic tree with pink leaves stood tall nearby, casting a gentle shade over the area. Several benches, weathered by time but still sturdy, were scattered around the pond. It was under one of these benches that Elmer had tied his steed, making sure it was secure before he walked towards another bench, nestled comfortably in the shade of the pink-leaved tree. Seating himself, he took a moment to observe the park's beauty, the serene ambience allowing him to clear his thoughts and prepare for the task at hand. As Elmer sat by the pond, watching the ducks glide gracefully, another cloaked figure quietly settled on a bench behind him. Like Elmer, this figure concealed their identity with a hood, but their attire was a striking pink, blending harmoniously with the hues of the leaves and the tree. A commanding yet feminine voice broke the silence. "How is everything, Arenal?" the figure inquired. "Elders want to know more about the Ridion Funds heist." "It was supposed to be a failed operation," replied Elmer, his eyes still fixed on the tranquil pond. "Things went way south," he added, both of them looking in opposite directions, maintaining the facade of two ordinary parkgoers enjoying the peaceful ambience. The park was bustling with people, and the constant murmur of voices made it an ideal location for their clandestine conversation. No one could eavesdrop unless they ventured uncomfortably close. "By the gods, Arenal. The underworld is going to grow stronger with the treasure you seized." "What in the world happened?" inquired the woman, her tone laced with concern. "Someone else interfered with my plans. I had to adapt and improvise, otherwise, my cover would have been exposed," Elmer replied somberly. "Who?" questioned the woman, clearly alarmed. Elmer paused, building tension in the air before delivering his revelation. "The one who entered Ridion Funds to check on the hostages and proceeded to beat our agent," he disclosed. The woman leaned in, her curiosity piqued. "Do you have any information for me to work with, Arenal? The elders are becoming increasingly anxious, and they are on the verge of aborting this operation. His name is John, but I don't believe it's his real name." "And you wouldn't believe what happened," Elmer remarked cryptically, leaving his companion eager for more. "What happened?" the woman demanded, her curiosity piqued. "He ventured into Vilnius gang territory, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. He poisoned Vilnius and made him his subordinate. Tell the elders, from now on, Vilnius will maintain the appearance of leadership to the outside world, but, in reality, he'll report to John," Elmer disclosed. The woman fell silent, digesting the unbelievable turn of events. "We need to gather more information about this John." "What's his next move?" inquired the woman. Elmer dropped another bombshell. "He's planning to rob the Eden's garden," he revealed. Hidden beneath her hood, the woman's eyes widened in astonishment. "What?" she exclaimed, her voice betraying the shock that coursed through her. "I've been tasked with getting the blueprint for the Eden's garden," Elmer confirmed. Eden's garden. That's madness. No one has ever lived to tell the tale after attempting to rob that place. No one has ever succeeded. He's either a madman or someone we should approach with extreme caution, Thilindra contemplated. It's the latter. He's anything but a madman. I'm telling you, Thilindra, he's far more dangerous than Vilnius. Vilnius is just a puppet, but John is a mastermind. If I hadn't witnessed the things he's capable of, I would have said that robbing the Eden's garden is impossible, Elmer emphasized. As Thilindra listened to the words of Elmer, one of Valander's top agents, she came to a sobering realization of the grave threat that John posed. So, do you believe he can actually pull off this heist? When is it scheduled to take place? Thilindra inquired, her voice tinged with curiosity. She was Elmer's handler and the intermediary between him and the higher-ups. I'm not sure, but I suspect it's going to happen very soon. What are your orders? Elmer inquired. Thilindra fell silent for a moment, contemplating their next move. Perhaps John is our key to capturing the Night Warden. If he successfully executes heists of this magnitude, the Night Warden is likely to take notice and might approach him. This could be our best opportunity in a long while, Thilindra proposed. So, you want me to assist John in robbing the Eden's garden? Elmer asked, even though he was fairly certain of the answer. Yes. I'll use my contacts in the town hall to secure the blueprint for you. But you must stick close to John and gather every piece of information you can about him, Thilindra instructed. This is excellent, Arenal. With the information you've provided, I can convince the elders to continue our mission. Keep up the exceptional work you've been doing, Thilindra praised him, her excitement thinly veiled. If John successfully carries out this heist, notify me immediately using the emergency rune. Speaking of the heist, do you know how John plans to sell the alchemical goods in the black market? Thilindra inquired further. John is an alchemist, a proficient one at that. I witnessed him refine an energy-boosting pill in a matter of seconds. He's at least a 5-star alchemist, Elmer informed Thilindra. A 5-star alchemist? That certainly narrows down the possibilities. So, he plans to refine the alchemical goods into pills and potions for sale in the black market? That's quite clever. It would make it much harder for the Eden's garden to trace the sellers, Thilindra commented. Even in Durin, there were countless transactions that took place within the dark underworld. Many of these transactions involved potions and pills. By selling refined products, rather than the raw ingredients, the risk of being traced back to Eden's garden was significantly reduced. Despite Eden's garden boasting some of the finest alchemists in the world, they wouldn't easily discern whether the ingredients used came from their own supply. If you could procure us a few samples of the pills and potions he refines, our alchemists might be able to discern his unique signatures and refinement skills. Additionally, we should alert our agents in the dark underworld to purchase these potions and pills. The last thing we need is those nefarious criminals in the dark world getting their hands on high-grade substances, said Thilindra. Elmer nodded, acknowledging the importance of this task. Any information on the Night Warden from your end? Elmer asked. The Night Warden was an infamous yet mysterious figure among the Agra worshippers, a prominent player in the underworld. No one had ever laid eyes on him, which made him nearly impossible to track down. According to Valander elves, the Night Warden was the third largest smuggler and celestial weapons dealer, responsible for countless deaths. Yet, even in the clandestine world, there were many who doubted his existence. I have some agents who claim the Night Warden might be selling weapons and scrolls to both Raynar and Croner in their ongoing wars, said Thilindra. Elmer let out a heavy sigh. Makes sense. Two gods locked in battle, and every arms dealer in the world would vie for a contract to supply them with everything they need. War is, unfortunately, good for business. Thilindra nodded somberly. And terrible for the people, she added, expressing a hint of pity for the refugees caught in the conflicts of Raynar and Croner. We can't halt their wars. Only the Pantheon has the power to do that. But the least we can do is eliminate scum like the Night Warden, Thilindra remarked. Elmer agreed, as you said, John might be our means of reaching him. All right, Elmer. Keep me informed. Stay here for an hour, and then proceed to the town hall. I'll have my people procure the blueprint you require. Be cautious, Elmer, Thilindra advised, her concern evident in her voice. Elmer let out a soft chuckle. My dear handler, you know I've been at this for decades. I know how to keep myself from meeting an untimely end. Thilindra smiled faintly, acknowledging his experience. You're a skilled spy, Elmer, but never forget that in our line of work, there's always someone better. With that, Thilindra rose from the bench and said, keep a close watch on John, before walking away. At that moment, Elmer had embarked on a dangerous cat-and-mouse game with Michael, unaware of the formidable adversary he was facing. However, Elmer had thrived in the shadowy world for decades, always at the peak of his craft. Hence, only time would determine who would emerge victorious in this high-stakes contest. Night Warden, I will catch you, Elmer muttered under his breath. Chapter 1098 Party Crashers. With 20 hours remaining until the commencement of Michael's next heist, he found himself reclining in Vilnius' imposing throne. Everything's in place on your end, Pink? Michael inquired through his earpiece. Yes, I can access the feeds from Eden's garden. It's frustrating not being able to manipulate them. Back on Earth, I could hack into those security cameras and mess with the guards, Pink lamented. It's fortunate that technological advancement is lacking in this world. Imagine these cultivators and gods wielding the power of technology, Michael chuckled. Don't underestimate those security cameras, though. Seraphine has runes and spies that rival the abilities of security cameras. Nothing happens there without her knowledge, Pink reminded Michael of the goddess of information's influence. Sounds like she'd make a valuable ally. Michael contemplated the idea of having Seraphine as a subordinate. I doubt it. She's one of the Pantheon's most loyal deities, Pink replied. How's Vidora doing out there? Pink inquired. I've left them at the Durin Library with Gilrut. I want them to absorb as much knowledge about this world and the book we're planning to steal as possible, Michael informed Pink. As he conversed with Pink, approaching footsteps caught Michael's attention. I have to go. Keep a watchful eye on our companion, Michael instructed Pink. I will, Pink replied with a chuckle. Anticipating that Vilnius and Elmer would be accompanied by additional orcs, Michael rose from the imposing throne. It was crucial that no one in the Vilnius gang discovered his true identity as their leader. You're back, Michael greeted the group as they entered the room. Before him stood Vilnius and Elmer, accompanied by 4 orcs and 2 dwarves. We've completed all the tasks you assigned, Elmer announced, handing the blueprint over to Michael. The orcs and dwarves stared in amazement at the human newcomer who had recently become part of their gang. These orcs were the typical hulking, green-skinned brutes, while the dwarves were short, had long bushy beards, and emanated the distinct aroma of ale. Tell us your plan, John, Vilnius instructed. Of course, boss, Michael responded, maintaining the facade of working under Vilnius. The orcs and dwarves didn't seem to suspect anything, assuming Michael was just another member of Vilnius' gang. Michael spread the blueprint on the table, revealing a yellowish parchment with a hand-drawn layout of the building's interior and exterior. He meticulously scanned the blueprint before turning his attention back to Elmer and Vilnius. Can we trust them? Michael inquired, referring to the orcs and dwarves. The orcs and the 2 dwarves expressed their frustration with growls, but Elmer vouched for their reliability. Very well, Elmer, Michael shifted his gaze from the orcs and dwarves to Elmer. Tell us what you've learned from your surveillance of Eden's garden, Michael requested. He had already gathered extensive information about the place using the spiders, but Michael was keen to assess the team's capabilities when it came to executing heists. Unbeknownst to the crew, Michael considered this operation a test, with the real heists yet to come. As I mentioned earlier, the place is guarded by 5 guards outside, all heavily armored. Inside, there are 12 guards. Eden's garden opens at 6 in the morning and closes at 11, with customers being asked to leave an hour before closing time, Elmer reported. While they're open for business, I observed runes in place that prevent customers from taking products outside without proper payment. Only the staff possesses the special runes required to remove the enchantments from the products. Furthermore, you can't store anything in your space rings due to runes that prevent items from being stored within them, Elmer explained as Michael pondered the information. Vilnius couldn't help but snicker inwardly, convinced that John was setting himself up for a miserable failure. However, Michael's finger traced a path on the blueprint, leading to a room located behind the main hall where products were sold. This room, Michael pointed out, it's labeled as the power room. Tell me, what do they have in there? He directed the question at Elmer and Vilnius, though he already knew the answer. Vilnius mumbled, celestial crystals to power the runes. But you can't access the power room without the manager's palm print, Elmer added. As he spoke, he recalled Michael's request to find the manager's whereabouts. The realization began to dawn on Elmer that John had meticulously planned every aspect of this heist. The manager lives in the Park District, but his manor is heavily guarded. Approaching him won't be easy. And even if you manage to get close, how do you plan to make him cooperate? Vilnius inquired. Who said anything about making him cooperate? We just need his palm print, Michael replied coolly, leaving Elmer and Vilnius to grasp the implications of his words. I'll take care of obtaining the palm print, he added. Michael then pointed to the eastern wall of Eden's garden. This is our entry point. There's an adjacent building, a clothing store. They won't have the same level of security as the Eden's garden. It should be a straightforward breaking and entering. I assume your crew can handle that, Michael asked, to which Elmer nodded. When you're inside, use the tools you've acquired to drill a hole and gain access to Eden's garden. Once you're inside, proceed to the power room. Use the manager's palm print to gain entry, and then disable the crystals. That should deactivate the runes, Michael instructed. N/V/E-L/B-1/N. Even if we destroy the crystal and power down the runes, it won't deactivate all of them, Elmer pointed out. Hearing Elmer's concern, Michael casually tossed a few silver space rings onto the table. You can store the alchemical goods in these space rings. I've calibrated them for you. Just point and take what you need. I know that reaching the backup crystals in the town hall is a hassle. So, once these crystals are gone, you'll have 6 minutes to clean out the place before the backup crystals reactivate the runes, Michael informed them. Elmer couldn't help but be amazed by how well prepared John was. Michael then handed out several earpieces to the crew. Put these in your ears, he instructed. I'll be monitoring and guiding you through the plan if necessary. But if everything goes according to plan, you'll exit through the hole you drilled. As Michael concluded his briefing, he folded his arms and fixed his gaze on the crew. And if any of you minions get any funny ideas about disappearing with what you've stolen. He didn't need to finish the threat, the implication hung heavily in the air. Now, go prepare yourselves. But no drinking tonight. If I catch any of you drunk, I'll make sure you won't have a tongue to taste anything ever again, Michael coldly threatened, leaving the crew visibly shaken. The orcs, in particular, didn't appreciate being threatened by a human they believed they could overpower. However, the orcs held their tongues, as their boss, Vilnius, remained silent. After the crew had left, leaving only Vilnius and Elmer behind, Michael took a seat on the throne. So, Vilnius, how are things on your end? I don't want any problems when it comes to selling the potions and pills in the black market, Michael inquired. My contacts are as ready as they'll ever be. Once you give me the pills and potions, I can fence them, provided you manage to get them, that is, Vilnius replied, his voice filled with a hint of resentment. What did I tell you about doubting me? Michael coldly asked, raising his fingers. Vilnius' heart skipped a beat at the thought that if John snapped his fingers, he would experience excruciating pain. No, not that again, boss, Vilnius growled. Elmer, still in awe of how John had managed to subdue a brute like Vilnius, observed silently. You can take the day off, Vilnius. Go out, enjoy your day. You can come back here once everything's done, Michael said. After leaving the Vilnius gang territory, Michael made his way towards the Park District of Durin. As he ventured out into the city, he found himself amidst the lively celebrations of the upcoming Harvest Festival. The night sky was illuminated with colorful fireworks that painted intricate patterns against the darkness. Amidst the festive atmosphere, Michael overheard the excited chatter of tourists and native orcs of Durin. "Look at those fireworks. They're even more spectacular than last year," a tourist exclaimed with awe in their voice. "It's always a treat to be in Durin during the harvest festival," a local orc remarked with a grin. Michael continued through the bustling streets, following the signboards that led him to the park district. The city was alive with energy and merriment, a stark contrast to the clandestine world he had recently delved into. Yet, he knew he couldn't let his guard down, not with the risky heist on the horizon. As Michael followed the signboards and continued through the park district, he soon found himself standing before a quaint and cozy manor nestled amidst a grove of pink maple trees. He glanced around to ensure he wasn't drawing any unwanted attention before speaking into his earpiece. "What's the plan, Ghost?" Pink's voice crackled through the earpiece, filled with curiosity and anticipation. Michael replied, his voice calm and collected, "The plan is simple, Pink. I need to infiltrate this manor and obtain the manager's palm print." Pink's curiosity got the better of him, and he asked, "What's the security like around that place?" Michael assessed the situation carefully before describing, "The manor is guarded, of course. There are a couple of guards at the front gate, and I've noticed some defense arrays around the premises. But I've got a few tricks up my sleeve to bypass those." With Pink serving as his eyes and ears, Michael was ready to execute his plan and secure the vital palm print for their upcoming heist. As Michael observed the manor from the shadows, he suddenly witnessed the lights inside the building extinguish one by one. He couldn't help but mutter in surprise, "Well, that's unexpected." Just as he was processing this strange turn of events, his instincts kicked in. He sensed movement in the darkness surrounding the manor. Several figures, shrouded in dark robes, were stealthily advancing toward the manor, using the cover of the night to conceal their approach. Quickly, Michael whispered into his earpiece, "Pink, we have company." Multiple figures, dressed in dark robes, heading for the manor. "Looks like we've got ourselves a party crasher situation." Chapter 1099, Assassin's Guild Invitation I. Chapter 1099, Assassin's Guild Invitation I. Utilizing shadow teleportation, Michael swiftly closed the distance between himself and the approaching mercenaries. As the lights in the manor suddenly went out, the orc guards patrolling the area were startled. Their surprise quickly turned into shock, and one guard exclaimed, "What the hell just happened?" Another guard, looking frustrated, cursed the runes, muttering, "Damn these runes. Always causing trouble at the worst times." In an attempt to regain control of the situation, one of the guards ordered the others, "Check on the power room and the celestial crystals. We need to get those lights back on." How helpful, they disable the runes, Michael mused as he watched the mercenaries approach the manor. Using his shadow teleportation, Michael quietly entered the manor through an open balcony. Inside, he activated his X-ray vision to locate the guards and get a sense of the layout. "Who are these guys?" asked Pink through the earpiece. "Do you think she sent them?" Pink inquired, concern lacing her voice. "Probably," Michael replied calmly, blending into the darkness of the room he had entered. It appeared to be some sort of storeroom, filled with cupboards, racks, and a table. As the mercenaries effortlessly leaped into the manor, Pink suggested, "Don't kill them. We might need to work with them in the future." Michael couldn't help but chuckle. "Ah. I'm hurt. You really thought I was going to kill them?" "I missed this," Pink said with a mix of relief and delight in her voice. Being out in the field with Pink's voice guiding him brought back a wave of nostalgia for Michael. As he was blending with the darkness and plotting a way to incapacitate them all, Pink continued. "Elmer must have alerted Thalindra about your plan to deal with the manager," Pink speculated. Michael had overheard everything Elmer had discussed with Thalindra through the spider he had placed on Elmer. It was a bit surprising to Michael to discover that Elmer was actually an undercover agent for the Elven Kingdom, Valander. Michael regretted not using 2 spiders on Elmer, which would have allowed him to also place one on Thalindra when Elmer met with her. But Michael had a plan to address his regrets soon. "Ah, she hired humans, how cute," Michael commented from the shadows. With his X-ray vision, he could see the face of one of the mercenaries when their hood shifted slightly, revealing a lack of pointy ears and an average body size. It was a clear indication that these weren't Thylindra's own operatives. After all, a sensible handler like her wouldn't want her own agents to potentially point fingers at her. Eventually, one of the mercenaries, sent by Thylindra, entered the room through the same balcony that Michael had used. They are talented enough to avoid the guards, Michael observed quietly. He waited for the mercenary to turn around, knowing that his innate ability allowed him to remain invisible and blend seamlessly with the darkness, rendering him undetectable to the intruder. Nova LB. And target is in the right wing of the manor. I am moving in, the mercenary whispered into a crystal device in his hand. These crystals functioned like earpieces, allowing them to communicate with each other, although their range wasn't as extensive as modern earpieces. As the mercenary took a step forward, Michael gently tapped his chest, activating his concealed armor. Upon tapping the skull medallion on his chest, the armor swiftly spread out from the medallion, enveloping his body. Michael raised the hood, and the armor completed its transformation by fitting a skull-shaped mask onto his face. Michael's eyes, now shining with an eerie darkness, analyzed the mercenary's aura and revealed that the intruder was significantly weaker than him, marked by the green aura surrounding him. In the blink of an eye, Michael dashed toward the mercenary. Before the mercenary could even sense Michael's presence, Michael struck him from behind with a powerful punch, rendering him unconscious. Swiftly, Michael caught the crystal the mercenary had dropped, preventing it from hitting the ground and shattering. The gray crystal pulsated slightly in his hand. Placing the crystal into a small compartment built into his waist armor, Michael retrieved several spiders and miniature drones from his inventory. Drones and spiders are active. Be my eyes and ears, Michael instructed Pink. With the knowledge he had imparted to her and the runes embedded in the system, Pink could now connect to the mirrors in her safe house to receive feeds from Michael's spiders and drones. Michael directed the spiders and drones to explore every nook and cranny of the manor. I've spotted 2 mercenaries approaching the room next to your location. It appears to be empty. You have the green light to incapacitate them, Pink relayed to Michael. Having Pink as his remote observer made dispatching the mercenaries much more efficient. Utilizing his agility and the cover of darkness, Michael moved stealthily toward the room's doorway, positioning himself to intercept the mercenaries. The orcs are attempting to activate the backup crystals to illuminate the orbs. Time is of the essence, Pink updated him. One of the mercenaries conversed with the other, questioning their presence in this section of the manor. Why are we even in this part of the manor? The target isn't here. The other mercenary replied confidently, I know. The rest of our crew will handle the target. We should grab whatever valuables we can find in the meantime. We'll fence them later for some extra coin. Michael couldn't help but snicker at the mercenary's avarice. After all, he was planning a heist for coins himself, so he couldn't judge them too harshly. With a sly grin, he plucked a gold coin from his pocket and flicked it across the room, creating a small but attention-grabbing noise. The mercenaries immediately perked up, their greed getting the best of them. What was that? They exclaimed, their heads turning toward the source of the sound. In a flash, Michael moved in closer, his swift actions leaving the mercenaries bewildered. He deftly knocked their heads together, rendering them unconscious. Afterward, he opened the nearest door and unceremoniously deposited their unconscious forms inside. As Michael moved stealthily toward the east wing, he continued to rely on Pink's assistance in tracking and neutralizing the mercenaries. Their communication remained discreet but efficient. Pink's voice whispered in Michael's earpiece, there are 2 more mercenaries ahead, lurking near the grand staircase. I'll guide you through. With Pink's guidance, Michael seamlessly blended with the darkness, his movements a shadowy dance. He approached the mercenaries from behind, his senses heightened in the darkness. He could hear their hushed conversation and smell the faint scent of their armor. Michael struck swiftly and silently. With a well-timed elbow to the back of one mercenary's head and a swift knee to the stomach of the other, he incapacitated them. They crumpled to the ground, unconscious. Meanwhile, the orcs guarding the manor patrolled the area with torches and conjured light orbs, their movements casting eerie, flickering shadows on the walls. The mercenaries, as well as Michael, remained hidden in the shadows, keeping a close eye on the orc guards' movements. Pink's voice remained hushed as she informed Michael of the orcs' positions. 2 guards coming from the west corridor, 1 from the south. Stay low and keep to the shadows. Michael followed Pink's guidance, expertly navigating the dark corridors. He utilized every nook and cranny, using the environment to his advantage. With calculated precision, he dispatched the guards one by one, ensuring they didn't raise the alarm. The mercenaries, too, followed Michael's lead, silently and cautiously avoiding the orc patrols. It was a delicate dance of shadows and silence as they continued their stealthy advance toward their target. In a tense turn of events, Michael and the mercenaries found themselves converging in the same dimly lit hall with the orc guards. The hall's shadows provided some cover, but the flickering light orbs conjured by the orc guards made the situation precarious. Hidden in the darkest corners of the room, Michael and the mercenaries remained undetected by the orc guards. The mercenaries, unaware of Michael's presence, discussed their plan. "We need to be quick," one of the mercenaries whispered. "The manager's room is just down the hall." Meanwhile, Pink's voice came through Michael's earpiece, a thread of anxiety in her tone. "You're surrounded by guards, and the mercenaries are closing in on you. Be careful." Michael knew he had to act swiftly to take down the mercenaries without alerting the orc guards. As the mercenaries moved closer, he bided his time, waiting for the perfect moment. The situation was becoming increasingly precarious. The orc guards, growing frustrated with the sporadic darkness, muttered curses and threats. One guard grumbled, "By the gods, these orbs are useless. How are we supposed to guard anything in this darkness?" Pink chimed in, her voice tinged with concern, "Ghost, they're almost on you. You need to move now." With precision born of years of experience, Michael struck. He lunged from the shadows, taking advantage of a flickering light orb to mask his approach. In a blur of motion, he incapacitated the mercenaries one by one, rendering them unconscious without a sound. As the mercenaries crumpled to the floor, Michael swiftly dragged their bodies into the deepest recesses of the hall, hiding them in the shadows. It was a delicate dance, avoiding the orc guards and their feeble light sources while concealing the fallen mercenaries. Pink breathed a sigh of relief through the earpiece. "Nicely done, Ghost. Now, continue toward the manager's room. We're running out of time." With the mercenaries dealt with and the orc guards none the wiser, Michael resumed his stealthy advance, leaving no trace of the confrontation behind. With the mercenaries out of the picture, Michael proceeded stealthily through the manor's east wing, nearing the manager's room. However, just as he was a mere few doors away from his target, the orc guards, in a desperate move, activated the backup crystals. The result was an abrupt illumination of the manor as the runes and light orbs sprang to life, bathing the manor in light. As the light flooded the hallway, the distant orc guards noticed the unconscious mercenaries sprawled on the floor and shouted in alarm. "Hey, lads, we got trouble here. Some folks tried to intrude," yelled one orc guard. "What? Who the hell got past us? Sound the alarm. Call for backup," another orc barked. "Be quick. They might be after the manager," a third orc exclaimed. Ignoring the chaos, Michael activated his X-ray vision. Simultaneously, Pink's voice sounded in his ear with a mix of shock and surprise. "Ghost, you need to make your move now. Someone else has entered the manager's room, and he doesn't look like a mercenary," urged Pink, pushing Michael to storm the room without wasting a second. Chapter 1100, Assassin's Guild Invitation 2. Chapter 1100, Assassin's Guild Invitation 2. Michael pushed open the door and was met with a gruesome sight. A figure, draped in crimson-red robes, stood beside a pale-skinned man, who was tightly bound to a chair. The man's throat had been cruelly slit, and blood gushed out, pooling around the chair's legs. As Michael entered, he immediately recognized the figure in crimson, the Angel of Death, the same enigmatic being he had encountered at Raynar's temple. There was an eerie familiarity in those crimson eyes. The Angel of Death greeted Michael with a sinister grin and waved his hand casually, shutting the door behind Michael. "Welcome, "Dear John," the angel purred, his voice chilling as death itself. "What did you do?" Michael demanded, his voice quivering with a mixture of anger and dread. The angel of death chuckled, his crimson eyes glinting with an unsettling amusement. "The manager, you see, has called forth for death. It is only my duty to grant him the sweet release he desires." Michael was taken aback. "Why?" he asked, his voice still firm despite the shock. The angel merely shook his head, his smile never fading. "Asking why is not my duty, dear John. My duty is to grant death." The angel of death chuckled softly, his eerie crimson eyes locked onto Michael's. "Ah, John," he mused, using the name Michael had given to everyone in this world. Such a simple name, one that everyone forgets easily. Obviously, it's a fake name, but I don't ponder the real names of those I meet. My duty is singular, after all. The angel of death surprised Michael with his swiftness, slicing through the manager's wrist with a single, graceful swing of his crimson dagger. Blood sprayed from the severed limb, and the angel nonchalantly tossed the severed arm toward Michael. "Is this what you were looking for, John?" he asked in a cool, detached tone. Michael was stunned and surprised by the sudden turn of events. He hadn't expected the angel of death to be involved in this macabre scene. "I know all about your little robbing plan," the angel of death continued. "But you don't have to fear me. I have no interest in your game." Michael carefully placed the bloody wrist in his system's storage, his mind racing with questions. He couldn't shake the feeling that the angel of death's presence here was about something more than just the manager's death. "Why are you here?" Michael asked, his voice steady but laced with curiosity. "I know you didn't come just to kill this man." The angel of death chuckled softly, his crimson robes swaying as he did. "You're correct," he admitted, his pale face devoid of emotion. "I'm here because what better place is there for an angel of death to invite someone than in a place where he's just claimed a soul? Irony, wouldn't you say?" Michael furrowed his brow, sensing that this encounter was far from ordinary. He couldn't help but ask, invitation to what? The angel of death's gaze bore into Michael's, and he said in a tone that sent shivers down his spine, "An invitation to join the death merchants." "I told you I'd be watching you," the angel of death remarked calmly, his crimson dagger still gleaming with the manager's blood. Michael was in shock. He hadn't sensed the presence of the angel of death, but it was now obvious that the enigmatic assassin had been following his every move. In response, Michael activated his eyes of darkness and saw a pulsating red aura around the angel of death. It was a clear indication that this angelic assassin was far stronger than he was. "It's time we initiate a fellow assassin into our secret guild," the angel of death said, his voice like a whispering shadow. Michael, realizing the urgency of the situation, spoke quickly. "We should relocate to a safer place. The orcs will soon storm this room." The angel of death snickered softly and calmly replied, "My little friends will take care of everyone in the manor. We can speak freely here." Inside his head, Pink's voice echoed with a note of urgency, "Ghost, something strange is happening. The orcs and mercenaries have all fallen unconscious." Michael, however, remained focused on the angel of death, ignoring Pink's warning for the moment. The angel of death continued to speak, his words carrying an air of finality. "Finish whatever you have on your plate within 2 months, and come to join our guild." His crimson eyes bore into Michael's, and a dangerous edge crept into his tone. "Don't think about rejecting this invitation." The threat hung in the air, leaving no room for negotiation or refusal. The angel of death turned away from Michael, his crimson robe billowing as he gracefully approached the window. He cast a final glance over his shoulder and said, "Dealing in death often comes with rewards worth more than gold coins." With that cryptic statement, he leaped out of the window, disappearing into the night with an eerie grace that defied explanation. Michael rushed to the window, his eyes scanning the dark expanse outside. To his astonishment, the angel had vanished completely from his sight, leaving no trace behind. As Michael gazed out of the window, he witnessed a startling sight. Carriages and armored orcs were converging on the manor from all directions. It was clear that reinforcements were on their way, and the situation was about to escalate further. Pink's voice echoed urgently in his earpiece. "Ghost, reinforcements are coming. You need to leave, now." Without hesitation, Michael leaped out of the window, activating his shadow teleportation to distance himself from the manor swiftly. As he ascended into the night sky, he couldn't help but glance down once more. What he saw was astounding. Countless orcs and soldiers in gleaming armor had surrounded the manor, their torches and light orbs creating an eerie, surreal glow in the darkness. The situation had turned into a full-blown crisis, and Michael had narrowly escaped it. Returning to the Vilnius gang hideout, Michael called Elmer and the heist crew together. Elmer, in his role as a gang member, asked with a mix of curiosity and concern, "How did everything go, John?" Inside, Michael couldn't help but be amused by Elmer's convincing act. He decided to play along and allow Elmer to believe he was just another member of the gang. With a flick of his wrist, a severed hand materialized in his grasp. He tossed the gruesome offering onto the table, and Elmer's eyes widened in shock at the sight. Michael calmly stated, "Now we have the rune, and it's time to take our heist to the next stage." Elmer, still clearly affected by the severed hand, asked hesitantly, Did you kill the manager?" Michael tilted his head slightly and asked in return, "Why do you care?" Elmer quickly responded, "Killing the manager would bring unnecessary heat on the gang. We don't want the authorities sniffing around." Michael chuckled coldly, his eyes gleaming with a calculating edge. "I'm not an amateur, Elmer. I don't leave behind evidence. The authorities will be scratching their heads, trying to figure out what happened at that manor." Michael's gaze shifted to the orcs and dwarves who stood behind Elmer. His eyes bore into each of them with an intensity that sent shivers down their spines. In a voice that dripped with chilling coldness, Michael warned, "If any of you even think about double-crossing me, I will cut you to pieces and scatter your remains so far and wide that not even your mothers or wives will be able to identify you." The threat hung heavily in the air, and the two dwarves, their voices stuttering, quickly assured, "We wouldn't dare, John. We're loyal to the gang." Michael turned to Elmer and said, "Prepare everything for the heist tomorrow." Elmer, caught off guard by the sudden change in plans, stammered, I thought the heist was scheduled for today." Michael, his tone casual, replied, "Plans change, Elmer. Just do as I tell you, and everything will go smoothly." Elmer didn't say anything, but inwardly, he was shocked. He had informed Thalindra that the heist would happen today, and now John had suddenly altered everything. He knew better than to display his emotions on his face. John was far more cunning than he appeared. As Michael dismissed the orcs and dwarves with a wave of his hand, they quickly exited the room. However, just as he reached the door, Michael called Elmer back. "Elmer," Michael said, "keep an eye on Vilnius." Elmer nodded in acknowledgement and then left the room to carry out his new orders. Michael settled into the ornate throne after Elmer's departure. As he made himself comfortable, Pink's voice chimed in through his earpiece. "Why did you tell Elmer to keep an eye on Vilnius?" she inquired. N-/0VLB1 and Michael chuckled softly and replied, "Just to throw Elmer off the scent for a bit, keep him guessing." Pink, ever efficient, immediately responded, "Elmer is heading back to the city, probably to establish contact with Thalindra, his handler." Michael's tone remained cold and composed as he instructed, "Find out how Elmer establishes contact with Thalindra. We need to know everything." With their plan now set in motion, Michael leaned back on the throne, ready to dive into the next phase of their ambitious heist. In the stillness of the dimly lit room, Michael retrieved a red metal plate adorned with an intricate golden emblem. The emblem depicted a skeletal figure, one hand gripping a scythe, the other clutching a pouch. As he held the plate in his hand, Michael found himself pondering the cryptic intentions of the god of death and his angels. "What are they playing at with this guild?" he muttered under his breath. With a flick of his wrist, he turned the metal plate, revealing a blank, featureless back. He continued to contemplate the uncertain path that lay ahead, asking himself, "What awaits me in this guild of shadows?" Chapter 1101, Harvest Day Heist Flawless Plan Nov, LB, 1 NAS. The sun descended beneath the horizon in Durin, Elmer and his crew smoothly infiltrated the bustling city, their presence blending seamlessly with the celebratory crowd. The upcoming Harvest Festival, slated for the day after tomorrow, had momentarily relaxed the vigilance of the city guards. Their focus had shifted towards identifying potential threats, primarily anyone carrying weapons or volatile alchemical substances, which Elmer and his crew cleverly circumvented by storing their tools in specially designed space rings. Elmer's voice resonated softly through his earpiece as he reported their successful entry into the city. "We're inside the city." "Good," Michael's voice replied in his head, a technological marvel that still left Elmer in awe. The power of these tiny devices allowed them to communicate effortlessly across vast distances. "The clothing store owner is closing up shop and preparing to immerse himself in the festivities." "It's your cue," Michael informed John, who was diligently monitoring the unfolding situation from his remote location, with the spider feeds granting him a comprehensive view of their surroundings. "We're en route," Elmer replied, as he navigated the lively crowd, making his way toward Eden's Garden, the coveted target, with the adjacent clothing store offering a discreet entry point for their impending heist. As Elmer and his crew approached their destination, they found themselves immersed in the heart of the festive crowd. Laughter, music, and the enticing aroma of street foods filled the air, while colorful stalls adorned with trinkets and delicacies lined the bustling streets. The night sky was illuminated with breathtaking fireworks, exploding in a mesmerizing display of vibrant colors, drawing exclamations of wonder and joy from the revelers. "Look at those fireworks, they're incredible," one spectator exclaimed, craning their neck to catch a better view. "Did you try those candied apples?" "They're amazing," chimed in another, holding up a sticky, glistening treat. Elmer momentarily allowed himself to be captivated by the festive atmosphere. He couldn't help but steal a glance at the bursting fireworks overhead. But Michael's voice crackled in his earpiece, snapping him back to the task at hand. "Elmer, stop gawking at the fireworks and get to the clothing store," Michael's voice urged, a reminder that their mission required unwavering focus amid the distractions of the celebration. With a nod, Elmer directed his crew towards the adjacent clothing store, determined to stay on course and execute their plan with precision. As Elmer and his crew reached their destination, they found themselves standing before Eden's Garden, a grand and alluring establishment. The adjacent clothing store, a two-story building made of colorful marble stones, displayed a fashionable mannequin behind a glass window, its garments catching the dim light of the evening. "Enter the building through the back door," Michael's voice instructed, guiding Elmer's crew towards their next move. The task of bypassing the entrance fell upon Elmer, who received a playful challenge from Michael. "Impress me with your lockpicking skills," Michael's voice, tinged with amusement, came through the earpiece. Elmer couldn't help but chuckle at the friendly banter between himself and Michael. "Get ready to be amazed," he quipped before making his way to the rear of the building. Meanwhile, the two dwarves in the crew, ever resourceful, set to work with a clever distraction. They approached the glowing orbs adorning the surroundings, deftly draping dark cloths over them to obscure the area, casting shadows that concealed their actions. Elmer focused on the task at hand, using his lockpick tools with practiced finesse. In a matter of moments, the lock yielded to his skill, and the door silently swung open. "Good," Michael's voice echoed in approval through the earpiece, signaling the crew to proceed with their mission. Inside the clothing store, the dimly lit interior revealed a myriad of elegant garments and shelves neatly displaying various accessories. The soft, ambient light cast a warm glow over the mannequins and racks of clothing, giving the space an inviting ambience. As the dwarves efficiently removed the dark cloths from the glowing orbs outside, they moved with silent grace towards the entrance of the clothing store. Once inside, they carefully closed the door behind them, ensuring their entry remained unnoticed in the bustling festival crowd outside. Michael's voice, calm and composed, directed their next steps. "Your target wall is on the east side, second story," he informed them. "Reach there and get to work." The crew acknowledged Michael's instructions with a series of nods and quiet affirmations. The crew proceeded cautiously up the creaky wooden stairs, their movements deliberate to avoid any undue noise. The stairs seemed to protest every step they took, groaning with age. As they ascended, the dwarves couldn't resist a jibe at the orcs, their deep voices carrying a hint of mockery. A bit heavy on those feet, aren't ya? One dwarf remarked, earning a few grumbles from the orcs. The orcs, not to be outdone, responded with a taunt of their own. Well, some of us are built for more than just tunneling, you know. Before the exchange could escalate further, Michael's cold voice intervened, instantly silencing the banter. Stop squabbling, unless you want your tongues cut out. The threat hung in the air, and both orcs and dwarves swiftly shut their mouths, refocusing their efforts on the task at hand. They reached the second floor and swiftly made their way to the east side wall. Elmer, with a flick of his wrist, produced the wall cutter, a circular blade adorned with intricate runes. The orcs, under Elmer's guidance, plunged the blade into the wall and started to move it in a circular motion, the enchanted blade making quick work of the thick wall. Michael's voice came over the earpiece, directing them. We need to finish cutting the wall in 5 minutes. The staff and guards have all left the Eden's garden. One of the dwarves, addressing Michael respectfully as boss, couldn't help but voice a concern. What if the Eden's garden changes the rune to enter the power room, now that the manager's been taken care of? Michael's tone was coldly confident as he responded, they're keeping his death under wraps, and we're lucky. The Eden's garden is arrogant and overly confident. They believe no one can or will rob them. The dwarves and orcs exchanged glances, reassured by Michael's conviction. The orcs and dwarves handled the wall cutter with surprising finesse, the circular blade moving through the stone as silently as a whisper. They soon had a hole large enough to slip through. Elmer, who was the first to peer through the hole, whispered back, we can see the Eden's garden hall. Michael's voice came through the earpiece, precise and commanding, all right, everyone, get to your positions. With a collective, yes, boss, they climbed through the cut wall, entering the dimly lit Eden's garden. The hall was a breathtaking sight, with alchemy goods, herbs, and bubbling cauldrons that glowed in various hues. Michael's voice guided them further, the Eden garden's most valuable goods are on the second floor. Orcs, dwarves, take each room on the second floor. The crew swiftly dispersed to their designated rooms, blending into the shadows. Michael continued, everyone, wait until Elmer destroys the celestial crystals powering up the runes. He'll let you know when it's time to steal the goods. Elmer silently slinked toward a door with a wooden board that read, staff only. He skillfully wielded his lockpicks, their delicate metal components glinting slightly in the dim light, and with precision, he opened the door. Michael's voice crackled in his ear, nervous, Elmer? Elmer, now inside a dimly lit corridor, replied confidently, no. In the privacy of his thoughts, Michael couldn't help but feel a hint of amusement at how smoothly he had managed to involve a spy in this illegal endeavor. He watched the spider feed as Elmer reached a copper door at the end of the corridor, sensing the pulsating energy around it. Elmer inspected the intricate runes engraved on the door, which had no visible knobs or handles. Taking a deep breath, Elmer retrieved the bloody wrist of the manager from his pouch and placed it against the door. The runes etched into the surface of the door lit up in various colors, shimmering like ethereal veins, and with a soft click, the door swung open. The door swung open, revealing a palm-sized, high-grade celestial crystal, its radiant purple hues catching the dim light. It rested on a pedestal, encircled by a shimmering blue energy shield. Glowing lines extended in all directions from the pedestal, forming a complex pattern. Elmer's voice trembled with uncertainty, John, there's an energy shield surrounding the crystal. Michael's response was calm, laced with amusement, put your hand into the shield and take out the crystal. Elmer frowned, his apprehension evident. He knew arguing would be pointless. With a resigned nod, he slowly approached the crystal, his palm outstretched. As he reached out, electric bolts shot from the shield, causing him to hiss in pain. The sensation was excruciating, his hand feeling like it was melting while searing agony radiated to his brain. Michael's voice pierced through the torment, firm and unwavering, pull out the crystal. Elmer took a deep breath, fighting against the searing pain. With determination etched on his face, he pressed his hand further into the shield, clenching his fist despite the torment. Fucking, sweet mother of. His curses were hushed but vivid as he continued to struggle, his hand inching closer to the coveted celestial crystal. Michael's voice carried a tone of amusement as Elmer, through sheer determination, managed to pull the celestial crystal out of the shield. Michael cheered him on, saying, "Atta boy." In the immediate aftermath, Elmer couldn't contain his cry of pain. "Arg!" he exclaimed as the agony surged through his burnt hand when he yanked the crystal free from the shield. Elmer's hand was a mess, charred and trembling from the pain. Michael quickly instructed, "Pour the healing potion on your hand and drink another one." Elmer, his breath still coming in ragged gasps, nodded and took out 2 shimmering blue healing potions from his pouch. As he reached for the potions, he couldn't help but notice a sudden, eerie silence in the room. The intricate glowing lines that had previously covered the walls and floor faded away. Michael's voice broke the silence as he gave the order to the orcs and dwarves, "The runes are down. Steal everything you see." With a hint of humor in his voice, Michael quipped, "Well, looks like it's our harvest day, my friends." The dwarves and orcs raised their space rings, which promptly emitted a brilliant light. It was as though a miniature portal had opened, and every alchemical good in the room was drawn into the radiant beam and vanished into the depths of their space rings. Chapter 1102, Harvest Day Heist 2, Rats in the midst. As the stolen alchemical treasures vanished into their space rings, one of the dwarves couldn't help but mutter, "There's so much more we could grab." The allure of wealth and rare alchemical ingredients was hard to resist, especially when they were laid out in such abundance. However, Michael knew better than to let greed cloud their judgment. He responded with a stern warning, his voice tinged with urgency, "Greediness will land us in prison." His years of experience had taught him the value of discretion and timing. "Backup crystals will power up in 2 minutes, he continued, emphasizing the need for haste. "We leave through that door in 1 minute and the dwarves and orcs understood the importance of Michael's words. With reluctance, they began to make their way towards the exit, their space rings filled with their ill-gotten gains. As the dwarves and orcs hurriedly made their way toward the exit, Michael contacted Elmer through the earpiece. "Watch the dwarves and orcs closely," he instructed, his voice filled with caution. "Make your way out of the building." Elmer acknowledged with a quick "Roger that," and started his own exit from the power room. His eyes fell on the high-grade celestial crystal, now in his possession. Uncertain of what to do with it, he asked Michael, "What should I do with this celestial crystal?" Michael's response carried a touch of humor, even in the midst of their risky heist. "We're here to rob, aren't we? Take the crystal with you." It was a reminder that their primary objective was to secure valuable goods, and this crystal certainly fit the bill. Elmer carefully placed the celestial crystal into his space ring, making sure it was secure. With their stolen treasures in tow, he continued to make his way out of the power room. In the dimly lit main hall of the Eden's Garden, the 2 dwarves, 4 orcs, and Elmer came together, their stolen treasures secure in their space rings. An orc spoke up, his voice filled with admiration. "John really outdid himself this time. Everything went so smoothly." Another orc chimed in, nodding in agreement. "Yeah, credit where it's due. John really impressed me." The 2 dwarves, however, were less enthusiastic about their exit. Greedily eyeing the remaining valuables in the hall, one of them grumbled, "We're leaving so much behind. We should clean this place out." To this, Michael responded with a sly sense of humor. "I can still hear you," he remarked, causing the dwarves to lower their voices and share a nervous chuckle. Elmer, ever the cautious one, intervened. "As much as we'd all love to stay and plunder further, we need to get out of here. The backup crystals will activate soon, and we don't want to be around when that happens." As Elmer and the crew were on the verge of leaving the hall through the same entrance they had sneaked in, a sudden and ominous turn of events unfolded. The runes etched into the walls of the hall came to life, casting an eerie glow that illuminated the entire space. Simultaneously, all the glowing orbs suspended in the air burst into radiant light. Elmer and his crew froze in their tracks, their hearts pounding in their chests as they exchanged fearful glances. Something was definitely amiss. Elmer, always alert, muttered in a tense voice, "Something's happening." Michael's voice crackled urgently in their ears, "Get out of there, now. Panic set in as the crew scrambled towards the hole they had cut into the wall. But before the dwarf could make it to safety, a sudden, powerful kick struck him square in the chest. With a painful cry, he was sent hurtling across the hall, crashing into counter. The rest of the crew gasped in shock, realizing they were found out. As the runes flared to life and the orbs lit up, Officer Barug stepped through the hole with an imposing presence. His armor clanked with each step, and his sharp eyes scanned the intruders with a mix of surprise and anger. At the same time, the distant sound of heavy boots echoed as several armored orcs rushed into the building through the front door. Elmer, trying to maintain his composure, called out frantically, "John! We've got trouble." Michael's voice came through the earpiece, steady and reassuring, "Keep calm. I'll get you out of there." But panic gripped one of the dwarves, and he rushed at Barug, brandishing a battle cry and a string of curses. The defiant dwarf shouted, "I won't go down without a fight." With a cold, calculated precision, Barug responded by delivering a swift and powerful kick, connecting with the dwarf's chest. The dwarf let out a gasp as the impact sent him sprawling backward, unconscious. Officer Barug, undeterred, calmly greeted the remaining thieves with a chilling tone, well, what do we have here?" Officer Barug's soldiers quickly closed in, forming a tight circle around Elmer and his remaining crew members. Michael's voice echoed in Elmer's earpiece, a calm and measured tone, "Stay calm, Elmer." Elmer mumbled under his breath, a sense of resignation in his words, "Whatever you're planning to do, just do it quickly." Barug, keenly observant, noticed Elmer's quiet muttering and approached him with a mix of surprise and curiosity. He remarked with a hint of astonishment, "An elf with Vilnius gang? You must be Elmer, the infamous thief among the Vilnius gang. I've been searching for you for a long time." Barug's imposing figure stood before Elmer, his eyes locked onto the elf with a sense of determination. He declared, "I've been waiting for this day." Suddenly, Barug plucked the earpiece from Elmer's ear with a quizzical expression, muttering to himself, "What do we have here?" His large Orcish fingers deftly held the small device, and he examined it in wonder. His surprise was evident as he marveled at its capabilities, addressing his soldiers with the earpiece in hand. "There are no runes in this, yet it allowed them to communicate across vast distances. The rune masters and scholars will have a field day with this." Turning his attention back to Elmer, Barug's tone became more stern. He demanded, "Who were you talking to, elf?" Elmer, now defiant and uncooperative, replied, "I'm not telling you shit." Barug couldn't help but let out a deep, guttural laugh at Elmer's defiance. His laughter was cruel and mocking as he observed the elf. Without warning, he unleashed a powerful punch to Elmer's gut. The force of the blow knocked the wind out of him, causing him to cough and gasp for breath. Through his pained breaths, Elmer managed to mutter a few choice curses at Barug. "You damn orc, you won't get anything out of me." Barug, now holding the earpiece, smirked down at Elmer. He slowly placed it in his own ear, a sinister glint in his eyes, as he remarked, "Well, just ask them directly." "I wonder who might be the genius behind this device," Barug muttered, still skeptical about its functionality. To his astonishment, a voice responded through the device, infiltrating his ear like the growl of a predatory beast. "Officer Barug." "What a pleasant surprise," the voice hissed, carrying an almost animalistic quality. Barug couldn't help but express his doubts aloud, saying, "Either this thing works strangely, or you're quite skilled at mimicking beasts." The voice on the other end responded with a sinister chuckle that sent shivers down Barug's spine. Michael continued to speak to Barug through the altered voice, a sinister edge to his words. "A good officer should do his boring work, end his shift, go home, and enjoy life as he's supposed to. Not meddle in matters above his pay grade." Barug snickered in response. "You should say those words to my face." The voice on the other end chuckled malevolently, "Oh, I fully intend to meet you eye to eye. But when that time comes, you can't do anything." Officer Barug, undeterred by Michael's words, countered confidently, "Every criminal I've caught talked arrogantly and acted tough, but they all cried in their cells once I was done with them. I've caught your crew, and they'll catch you, the leader." "Oh, is that so?" Michael replied with a hint of amusement in his altered voice. Barug didn't mince words. I know you're not Vilnius. Enlighten me, Michael prompted. Barug explained, Vilnius is too stupid to pull off something like this. Michael clapped his hands slowly, his voice dripping with amusement. Life was becoming so dull, Barug. This might just bring back some excitement. Barug countered, It'll get a lot more exciting when I put you in prison. Michael couldn't help but taunt him further. You didn't catch them because of your brains, Officer Barug. You caught them because of a rat in the gang or maybe in your own crew. Barug was met with a chilling response. Expect to find more bodies in the upcoming days. Michael added with a touch of amusement, cleaning out the rats is a necessary task, after all. Barug cautioned, you don't want to raise the robbery charges to murder charges. Michael chuckled darkly, it's cute to hear those words again. Laugh all you want. Under the law, you are nothing but criminal scumbags, Barug retorted. Michael responded confidently, law doesn't apply to me or my crew, officer, Barug countered, your crew will sing a different song when I put them in prison. But then, to Barug's astonishment, the words Michael was speaking started to emanate openly outside the earpiece. Michael's voice reverberated as he declared, I'm not doing this for fun. I'm a professional. How can a professional like me leave his crew behind? The room's lights flickered ominously as Michael continued speaking, sending shivers down the spines of Elmer and the crew. Barug, too, heard the voice, and it warned, I wish to see you, Officer Barug, and you'll get that chance sooner than you expect. Suddenly, everything plunged into pitch-black darkness. Chapter 1103, Plans of the Guardian Guild. Amidst the bustling crowd, a young man with a full beard and long, flowing black hair carefully cradled a steaming mug. The scent wafting from it was a fragrant symphony that caused heads to turn and noses to twitch. One passerby exclaimed, what is that heavenly smell? A woman next to him inquired, is it from that guy's mug? As the young man weaved through the crowd, people couldn't help but murmur their curiosity. It smells like fresh-baked bread. Or maybe cinnamon and apples. He finally reached the library, where a hush fell over the readers as they caught a whiff of the delightful aroma. One elderly scholar remarked, it's been ages since I smelled something so inviting. The young man threaded his way through the readers until he reached a secluded corner. His lips moved soundlessly as he muttered, poor bastards. Then, with a deft touch, he pulled a particular book from the shelf. A soft click echoed in the silence as the bookshelf swung open, revealing a concealed passage. The young man stepped into the dimly lit corridor, gently closing the door behind him. The secret passage led the young man down a winding staircase into the heart of the underground. As he reached the bottom, the passage opened into a grand, spacious hall. The vast chamber was alive with the diligent work of dwarves mining glistening golden orbs. One of the dwarves, his pickaxe striking true, looked up and caught a whiff of the aromatic brew from the young man's mug. Is that coffee from the Grand? He asked, momentarily distracted from his task. The young man chuckled, setting the mug aside on a nearby stone. Focus on your work before she catches you slacking off, he advised. Another dwarf, with a mischievous glint in his eye, chimed in, if we get caught, we can always use your name to escape, right? Amidst the laughter that followed, the young man grinned and replied, she'd kick my ass first and then probably bury you all. As he continued to make his way towards the center of the hall, a dwarf on his way to mine another golden orb muttered to his companion, she seems really in the mood today. The young man, overhearing the remark, grinned wryly. Mood is an understatement. Then, as he walked away, one of the dwarves couldn't resist calling out to him, don't let them live, Ricky. In the center of the grand hall, Ricky beheld a grim tableau. 3 young men hung by their bound hands, their bodies bruised and battered, blood dripping from fresh wounds. Their faces bore the marks of a merciless beating, and their eyes held a mixture of pain and despair. Nearby, a young woman with raven black hair, dressed in dark, imposing armor, leaned casually back in her chair. She was none other than the Dark Queen Gaia herself. At this moment, she was asleep, her chest rising and falling with each slow breath. Ricky approached cautiously, the mug of coffee in hand, and whispered, "Dark Queen." Gaia's nose twitched, and her eyes fluttered open as the delightful aroma of the coffee reached her senses. She sat up, blinking away drowsiness, and regarded Ricky with an air of calculated indifference. Ricky's gaze drifted to the three men hanging nearby, their pain evident. He saw the stains of their blood on the ground and fresh wounds on their bodies. Gaia's fists were smeared with crimson, a testament to her interrogation methods. Quietly, Ricky stepped closer, standing behind her. Gaia turned her gaze toward him, her eyes piercing. With a sip of the coffee, she finally asked, "What took you so long?" Gaia, with a no expression, commanded Ricky, "Get them some healing potions." The three men, still hanging and weakly muttering, shook their heads and whispered, "No, no, no," in a feeble attempt to refuse. Ricky walked over to the dwarf stationed on the other side of the hall. With a simple nod, he signaled the dwarf, who promptly pulled down a lever. The mechanism activated, lowering the three injured men to the ground. Now, on the floor, they looked up at Ricky with desperation in their eyes and muttered weakly for help. "Please, help us." Ignoring their pleas, Ricky swiftly reached for the gleaming blue potions and, with gentle but firm hands, forced the liquid down their throats. Almost instantly, the magical elixir began its work. Their wounds closed, the bruising faded, and a renewed light of vigor returned to their eyes. The moment the three men were healed and regained enough strength to shout, they began pleading with Gaia, their voices trembling with desperation. "We don't know anything," one of them cried out. Ricky, having returned to Gaia's side and now standing behind her, felt no pity for the men. They held the secret to something that could turn the Guardian Guild into a superpower once again. Gaia, her expression unchanging, placed her coffee aside and leaned forward, her dark armor creaking softly. She addressed the men with a tone of authority, "Tell me where the plans are, and I'll spare your families." The three men, now shouting and screaming, continued to beg for mercy, their voices trembling with fear and desperation. "Please, Dark Queen, have mercy. We don't know anything about those plans." Gaia chuckled darkly at their pleas. "I am a merciful Dark Queen," she mused, "which is why I've been generous enough to provide you with valuable healing potions." Her tone turned colder as she continued, "It seems it's you who are heartless, chugging down these healing elixirs and yet refusing to give me what I want." The men's pleas fell on deaf ears as Gaia leaned back in her chair, waiting for them to reveal the information she sought. Gaia sighed, her patience waning, and stood up from her chair. Ricky swiftly handed her a club, knowing what was about to happen. With the club in hand, Gaia approached the three men who were still hanging, their faces etched with fear. In a cold and commanding tone, Gaia asked once more, "I will ask again, where are those plans?" As she clenched the club tightly, Gaia advanced toward them. The tension in the room was thick, and the three men could feel the impending punishment. Gaia's voice grew even colder as she continued, "You have no idea how much effort and work it took my husband, the Dark Lord, and me to dismantle the Guardian Guild. Months of meticulous planning and secrecy, all of it threatened by one asshole with giant brain." She stopped in front of them, her eyes narrowing with intensity, and demanded, "Now, where are those plans?" Gaia swung the club with swift, brutal force, striking one of the men square on the skull. He cried out in agony as the blow sent searing pain through his head. She then turned her attention to the man in the middle, whose brown hair was now matted with blood, and his face had turned an eerie shade of pale. As Gaia was interrogating, another figure materialized within the hall. It was none other than Azazel himself, as composed and impeccably dressed in his butler uniform as ever. "My lady, it's done. Their families are secured," Azazel reported. "No. Leave my family alone. NOVLB, 1N, please, I beg you, don't hurt my family." The three men began to shout for mercy, but Gaia paid them no heed. Instead, she took a mirror offered by Azazel and showed it to them. In the mirror, the three men saw their own families, tied to chairs in their own homes, their faces etched with fear and desperation. Did you encounter any trouble? Gaia inquired of Azazel. Nothing I couldn't handle, Dark Queen. Though I did face some challenges locating their families, it cost a few guardians their lives, Azazel responded, an amused tone in his voice. You know what they say, a good guardian is a dead guardian, Gaia chuckled. Azazel, would you like to give it a try? These assholes handpicked by Noah are pissing me off. I fear I might just kill them if I continue, Gaia sighed in exasperation. The 3 men hanging before her belonged to the Guardian Guild. Despite Michael's dismantling of the original Guardian Guild, Noah had seen it as an opportunity to establish his own version of the guild. As anticipated, Noah had meticulously reconstructed the Guardian Guild from the ground up, subjecting every guardian to rigorous physical and mental training. Even Gaia found it challenging to break them. I truly miss him in situations like this. That bastard would simply flick his wrist, produce some potent potion, and poof. They'd spill the truth like drunken pirates, Gaia lamented, her longing for Michael evident in her voice. Now that we have their families, why not let them witness their loved one's demise, Dark Queen? Azazel calmly proposed. At the mention of this, the 3 men panicked, their hearts skipping a beat. I didn't want to resort to that, but these assholes, Gaia seethed and impulsively hurled a club at one of them in a fit of anger, are leaving me no choice. No, 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 no. Spare our families. You'll pay for this, you evil bitch, one of the guardians shouted, but the smile on Azazel's face slowly faded, replaced by an icy coldness. Ricky knew all too well what was about to happen. Azazel materialized before the guardian in a blur, striking with deadly precision. He punched through the guardian's chest, grasping his still-beating heart. Now, witness your family's demise as your own heartbeat falters, Azazel declared in a chilling tone. With a flick of his wrist, a mirror floated in the air before the guardian. Inside the mirror, the guardian's family was bound to their chairs. Suddenly, figures cloaked in black robes appeared in the feed, forcing a green misty potion down the family members' throats. No, the guardian uttered, while the other 2 watched in helpless despair as the family met their end, foam oozing from their mouths. Although the potion brought swift, painless death, their bodies writhed and twitched, as if undergoing agonizing torment. Under normal circumstances, Ricky might have felt sympathy for the families. However, the plans Hammond had devised posed a dire threat to all of them. Moreover, the Guardians were ruthlessly hunting down anyone who supported the Dark Army or even mentioned the Dark Lord. Even Noah, when it came to the Dark Lord, had become a tyrant. We can extract the truth about the plans through other means, Azazel. Just finish their families and be done with it, Gaia ordered Azazel, her eyes harboring a hidden agenda. No, they'll tell you. Please, spare my family, the Guardian finally broke, his resolve crumbling after witnessing his fellow Guardian's demise and the death of his own family. Speak, Gaia demanded. The plans, they are en route to the dwarves in the Windgate Mountains, please, release my family, the Guardian pleaded. Windgate Dwarves, the rising guild of the proud dwarves, Gaia mused. Azazel, inform Arya to take care of it. I want those plans on my desk by tomorrow, Gaia instructed as she turned her attention to the dwarves who were diligently mining. If anyone breathes a word about what transpired here, you know the consequences, right? Gaia questioned the dwarves, who froze in their tracks. These 20 dwarves were fiercely loyal to the Dark Lord, yet Gaia maintained a tight leash on them. Yes, Dark Queen, they chorused in unison. However, just as Gaia was preparing to depart, a portal materialized before her, and Daniel rushed out with blood-stained hands. Dark Queen! Daniel exclaimed in a panic, causing Gaia to furrow her brows. What happened? She inquired. It's Cindy, she. Daniel stuttered, clearly in shock. Gaia's heart skipped a beat upon hearing his words. She swiftly moved to grab Daniel by his collar. What happened to her? Gaia's voice reverberated throughout the mine. An undead bit her, she's not healing. Daniel replied, shocking everyone present. Chapter 1104, Zariel, the Reaper of Forcrux. Gaia wasted no time, immediately darting through the portal with Daniel, Ricky, and Azazel trailing behind. Emerging on the other side, they found themselves in the underground training ground of the Aur continent. Despite being underground, the area was brilliantly lit with glowing orbs and runes, making it difficult to discern its subterranean location. Within the hall, several undead warriors in black armor and alpha vampires were stationed. In the center, Delar was tending to Cindy, who lay on a table, her young form writhing in pain. Cindy. Gaia rushed to the girl's side. Delar couldn't help but shudder as Gaia approached. Sister. Gaia. Cindy managed to say amidst the pain. Despite her tender age, Cindy displayed remarkable resilience, refraining from shedding tears as she bravely confronted the agony. Numerous empty vials lay scattered around Cindy, a testament to Delar's efforts to administer healing potions. Gaia's gaze focused on the blood seeping from Cindy's neck. She gently moved Cindy's small hands away, revealing the telltale bite mark on her neck. What happened? Gaia's voice thundered as she turned her fury towards Delar. The undead, it lost control and bit her. Delar mumbled, his voice barely audible. Gaia didn't pause for a moment's consideration. Instead, she swiftly pivoted and delivered a devastating punch to Delar's chest. The impact was so forceful that it sent him hurtling through the air for a distance of at least 10 meters. He crashed against the wall, coughing up blood before slipping into unconsciousness. It's not his fault. Cindy tried to interject, but Gaia was consumed by her fury. She cast her gaze upon the surrounding undead. With a simple raise of her hand, she conjured fiery arrows that streaked through the air, immolating every undead and alpha vampire in their vicinity. The scorching heat and the smell of burning flesh left everyone feeling queasy. Against Gaia's overwhelming power at the level 10 immortal stage, the undead had no chance. Bring Olivia to me now. Gaia bellowed as Ricky and Daniel produced a golden scroll and tore it open, generating a radiant portal. Without hesitation, they plunged into the portal, their mission clear, to retrieve Olivia. Just as Ricky and Daniel departed, another portal materialized, and Elidor stepped through. I heard what happened. Let me see her, Elidor urgently requested. His voice conveyed deep concern and worry. Even Azazel appeared anxious, for in the Dark Army, regardless of how cold or distant its members might be, they all adored Cindy. No one could bear to witness harm befall the young girl. You are not a healer, Gaia growled skeptically as she watched Elidor examining Cindy. No, but I understand energy. If the healing potion isn't working, it suggests that something is obstructing it. Some form of energy, Elidor explained. His words carried a weight that hinted at a deeper suspicion. Tell me she can be cured, Gaia demanded. Meanwhile, Azazel paid no attention to the conversation and gently applied a cloth to Cindy's neck to staunch the bleeding. Take her to my workshop, Elidor instructed after closely examining the bite mark. You're going to be all right. Gaia whispered softly as she cradled Cindy in her arms. The young girl, despite her pain, tried to muster a smile, showing her resilience and trust in Gaia. It tugged at Gaia's heart, burdened with the weight of responsibility. Stay here, Gaia instructed Azazel, leaving Cindy in his care as she followed Elidor through the portal. In the blink of an eye, the scenery shifted once again. Gaia found herself in a cluttered hall, strewn with countless books, scrolls, and scattered metal pieces engraved with glowing runes. It was Elidor's workshop, part of their safe house provided by Nithroel. Place her on that table, Elidor directed, indicating a sturdy mahogany table near a massive portal. As Gaia gently laid Cindy on the table, Elidor conjured symbols in the air, enveloping Cindy in a protective golden energy shield. What is this? Gaia inquired from outside the shield. Just a precaution, Elidor replied cryptically. His words hinted at a deeper significance. The shield was designed to contain Cindy's soul in case their efforts to heal her failed. It would not prevent her death but would preserve her soul within the shield for a limited time, serving as a last resort and safety measure. Please, don't tell Mom. Shed panic and never let me train again, Cindy pleaded. Her words weighed heavily on Gaia's conscience. It was her influence that had inspired Cindy to become a fighter like herself. I should have never let her train with those abominations, Gaia muttered, self-blame creeping into her thoughts. He never liked self-loathing, Ellider remarked as he continued to search through scrolls and books. Well, he's not here, is he? He dumped everything on my shoulders and went off to do who knows what, Gaia vented her frustration and helplessness, scolding Michael in his absence. He left because he trusts us to handle things. And if I'm correct about this, we might find a way to contact him again, Ellider responded calmly, surprising Gaia. What are you hiding, Ellider? Gaia inquired with a stern tone. The god of necromancy, Ellider replied as he approached Gaia, holding a glass orb engraved with several runes. What on earth are you talking about? Gaia asked, her curiosity piqued. Look, this is the orb Arya stole from the Kethan temple. It was a temple where the Guardians set up their camps, a temple of Forcrux, Ellider explained, his tone deadly serious. Gaia recalled Ellider's involvement with Arya and Sadie in stealing an artifact from Kethan. She trusted Ellider's judgment and didn't usually micromanage such operations, but she had never expected this artifact to be linked to the god of necromancy. Ever since the angels started appearing everywhere, I've been sensing strange anomalies all around us. One of those anomalies, I detected within the undead, Ellider continued, revealing his growing interest in ancient artifacts since Michael's departure. You're not making any sense. What anomalies are you talking about? Gaia pressed for clarification. Ellider elaborated, this occurred when Dalar requested my help in opening a portal to the Nether Realm without alerting the Sky Hall. Initially, it should have been a straightforward task with our portal here, but when I engraved the runes for the Nether Realm, the runes in this vicinity started behaving erratically. These teleportation runes have the capability to pick up on unusual energies. What I sensed that day was a profoundly potent energy, much like the energy emanating from the Dark Lord. He continued, it was the energy of a god, entering the Nether Realm like a surge. Since then, I've received reports of space distortions from all over the Elon continent. Gaia's expression darkened as she listened intently. You still haven't explained how any of this connects to an undead biting my Cindy, she growled, her patience wearing thin. I took measures to safeguard our training ground from these distortions and believed my runes would protect the undead from being influenced by the energy of the Nether Realm. However, just before I witnessed an undead biting Cindy, I saw the runes around the training ground light up. At that very moment, this orb also began to emit a faint glow, Ellider explained, gradually approaching Cindy while holding the orb. As he moved closer to Cindy, Gaia noticed a subtle jade-green radiance emanating from within the orb. Take a look. How could an orb that we found in an ancient temple of Forcrux react to these anomalies if it weren't somehow connected to the god of necromancy? Ellider continued. I even consulted Nithrol about this, and she confirmed that the Nether Realm does indeed contain Forcrux energy. Before the previous Dark Lord sealed the gods off from entering the mortal realm, Forcrux had performed his rituals there. That's why the Nether Realm is inhabited by undead and serves as the source of all undead. Ellider's explanation left Gaia in deep contemplation, her mind racing to piece together the implications of this revelation. Look at this orb, Ellider said as he kept the orb above Cindy. To Gaia's surprise, the bite mark on Cincid's neck slowly radiated a dim green light. Bathed in the golden light of the protective shield with the mysterious orb nearby, Gaia and Ellider could discern peculiar green lines coursing through Cindy's body. Their attention was fixated on the little girl as she suddenly tilted her head and gazed at them from within the shield. You foolish mortals, an evil and chilling voice emanated from Cindy. Her once blue eyes now glowed an eerie shade of green, and her voice bore an entirely different tone. It was evident that someone or something else had taken control of Cindy's body. You've been tapping into my powers without my permission. This has gone on long enough. Cindy slowly rose, her hand resting against the golden shield. She tilted her head, regarding Gaia and Ellider with an unsettling coldness. Who are you? Ellider inquired, while Gaia clenched her fists in readiness to unsheath her sword. You can call me Zariel, the Reaper of Forcrux. Chapter 1105. Cindy is not Cindy anymore. The sudden emergence of Zariel, one of the reapers in the service of the god Forcrux, left them all deeply unsettled. There was a purpose behind certain gods employing reapers rather than angels, and the god of necromancy was one of those deities, making Zariel the ideal entity to seize control of Cindy's body. What are you? Gaia's voice wavered with a blend of anger and panic as she sought answers. Must I repeat myself, bitch? I am Zariel, a reaper in the service of the god of necromancy, Forcrux. Zariel's chilling words resonated through Cindy's mouth. Cindy's once innocent blue eyes had morphed into a menacing shade of yellow, and an ominous green mist emanated from her skin. Please, spare her. Release her body, Elidor implored, his voice laced with desperation. You've been harnessing my power to create undead, yet you protest when I use this insignificant vessel. What hypocrisy, Zariel sneered. Let her go. You have no idea who you're dealing with, Gaia growled, but her demands only incited Zariel's sinister laughter. I know precisely who you are. I possess knowledge of your every secret, including how the god of darkness staged his death and ascended to the realm of gods, Zariel remarked, his words dripping with malevolence. Cindy, once a sweet child, was transformed into a vessel of darkness by Zariel's presence, which manifested in her unsettling appearance, yellowed eyes, a green aura, and a noxious odor. I've been observing you through the undead. They are forged with my power, making each one of them my spy, Zariel gloated malevolently. What is it that you want? Elidor inquired, recognizing that Gaia's fury had the potential to override her reason. He was relieved that the Dark Queen had thus far restrained herself, allowing her intellect to prevail. What everyone desires in this world, and what I crave, is freedom, Zariel replied. It'll be unequivocal. I want to break free from my prison in the Nether Realm, and you are going to facilitate that. If you fail, bid farewell to this child, Zariel declared. Before Gaia and Elidor could react, Zariel seized control of Cindy's arms, forcing her to scratch her own face. Stop! Gaia shouted in horror as blood trickled from the scratches. Zariel, inhabiting Cindy's body, merely chuckled. If this child's life isn't valuable to you, consider that I know every detail of your deeds. It would take me mere moments to report the god of darkness to Forcrux. If he didn't personally deal with your Dark Lord, had unleashed the entire pantheon upon him. We wouldn't want that, now, would we? Zariel asked, leaving Gaia and Elidor with no room for defiance. Now, utilize the artifact you unearthed to locate my prison in the Nether Realm. Hurry, time is running out, especially for this child, Zariel commanded, chasing them away. But Gaia and Elidor remained rooted in shock and helplessness. I said go. Zariel roared, causing cracks to appear in the golden shield enveloping Cindy. He then raised her arm and twisted it, breaking it with a sickening snap. No! Elidor cried out. Please, don't hurt her. Gaia pleaded, but Zariel merely laughed, leaving Cindy's arm grotesquely contorted. We're going. Elidor grabbed Gaia by the hand and led her out of the hall. Once they were outside the hall, Gaia vented her fury by punching the wall, causing it to crumble. I'm going to kill him, tear him apart. Arg! Gaia roared, her eyes welling up with tears. We must do as he says, Dark Queen, Elidor advised. This orb, Elidor examined the glass orb in his hands. Did this wake him up? Elidor inquired cautiously. Gaia directed her fierce gaze at Elidor. She couldn't help but wonder if Elidor's excavation of the orb had indirectly led to Cindy's possession by Zariel. Feeling the intensity of Gaia's glare, Elidor instinctively took a step back. However, a teleportation vortex materialized nearby, sparing Elidor from Gaia's wrath. Gaia, what happened to Cindy? Let me see her. Olivia emerged from the portal, her face etched with panic and concern. Don't go inside, Elidor halted Olivia, with Ricky and Daniel following closely behind her as they stepped out of the vortex. Why? Azazel said she's here. Where is she? Olivia inquired anxiously. What happened? Olivia's gaze shifted from the cracked walls to the murderous intent in Gaia's eyes and the worry in Elidor's voice. Dread washed over her as she considered the worst. Cindy is possessed by a Reaper of Forcrux, the god of necromancy, Elidor revealed, sending shivers down their spines. Daniel and Ricky trembled at Elidor's words, while Olivia stood there in disbelief. Possessed? By a Reaper? Olivia's frown deepened as she sought clarification. The bite from the undead was a method used by Zariel to possess Cindy. He's been monitoring us through the undead in the Nether Realm, Elidor explained, recognizing that Gaia was in no mood to explain. Zariel? Is that the name of this Reaper? Olivia questioned. He's also the origin of all the creatures in the Nether Realm. He claims we need to free him from his prison there, or hell kill Cindy, Elidor clarified. Let me see her, Olivia insisted in shock. Although she found it hard to believe Elidor's words, she felt a strong need to see Cindy for herself. However, Elidor quickly intervened to stop her. I think you should take a look at, no, if you go in there, he will harm Cindy, Elidor cautioned. Then we should view her through the spiders in there, Ricky, snapping out of his initial shock, suggested a solution. Gaia. Olivia turned to her, silently imploring her assistance. Gaia, in response, flicked her wrist, summoning a mirror into her hand. Azazel, transmit the feed from my workspace to the Dark Queen's mirror, Elidor instructed Azazel via an earpiece. No, I can't, Lord Elidor, Azazel's voice carried a heavy gravity. What do you mean, you can't? Elidor inquired with a perplexed frown. He says spying is wrong and threatened to inflict more harm on Cindy, Elidor conveyed Azazel's grim message. It was evident that Azazel had witnessed the events transpiring within the workspace through the spiders. However, Zariel was well aware of the spiders and had issued a threat to harm Cindy upon detecting their surveillance attempts. What's going on? Olivia inquired, growing increasingly anxious. He's aware. Zariel knows about the spiders and has threatened to harm Cindy if we attempt to spy on him, Elidor explained, leaving everyone even more alarmed and astonished. What are we waiting for, then? We must find a way to contact the Dark Lord, Olivia panicked, but Gaia vehemently shook her head. If we do that, he'll inform his god of the Dark Lord's survival, leading the entire pantheon to hunt him down in the realm of gods. We can't endanger him in the realm of gods. He doesn't need to deal with this as well, Gaia reasoned, her concern for her husband's safety palpable. Then what are we going to do? We cannot allow someone or something to possess our Cindy. What are we going to tell Raylene? Olivia inquired with a worried tone. Well, do what he asks and keep it all from Raylene until we've reclaimed our Cindy, Gaia responded sternly, her tone leaving no room for debate. You two stay here in case he contacts us, she instructed Ricky and Daniel. Though they were fearful, they nodded in agreement and positioned themselves as vigilant guards just outside the door. Gaia then contacted Azazel, who responded with an undertone of restrained bloodlust. Dark Queen, is there anything I can do to assist? Azazel inquired. Yes, arrange an emergency meeting with Nithroel. We need to gather information about who we're dealing with. She might be the only one who can provide insights about Zariel, Gaia directed before making her way to the meeting hall. During her journey to the hall, Gaia remained silent, not exchanging a word with Elidor. Upon their arrival, they were greeted by an ornate golden door with intricate designs. Upon opening it, they found themselves in a room with a circular marble table and a large mirror adorning one wall. I told you this isn't the right time for us to meet, Gaia, Nithroel's visage appeared in the mirror. The goddess of Hunt and Empress of Gondolin appeared as regal as ever, her golden hair flowing and her royal blue robes adding to her majesty. It's important, Nithroel, Gaia asserted. Given her position as the Dark Lord's wife, Nithroel allowed Gaia to address her by name rather than using honorifics. It had better be. I'm in the midst of a war with the dwarves, Nithroel responded, a trace of annoyance detectable in her voice. What do you know about Zariel? Gaia inquired, her voice laced with concern. Upon hearing the name Zariel, Nithroel's countenance shifted immediately. Her brow furrowed deeply, and her eyes exhibited an unmistakable discomfort, as though she had heard a name she wished never to encounter. Whatever you're contemplating, abandon it. Keep as far away as possible from that reaper, Nithrol admonished sternly. Even as a goddess of the hunt, she appeared visibly disturbed by Zariel's name. This reaction deepened Gaia and Elidor's unease regarding Cindy's fate. He has taken possession of Cindy, Nithrol, Gaia explained, her voice faltering with emotion. Idiots! Nithrol exclaimed, her powerful voice causing the mirror on the wall to crack, forming several fissures that did not shatter. I don't even want to know how you allowed that to happen. You have no comprehension of the horrors he's capable of. Without the Dark Lord, you stand no chance against him. Please, tell me you've at least contained him somewhere, Nithrol implored, her voice carrying the weight of urgency. He wants us to release him from his cage in the Nether Realm, Elidor disclosed. Don't. Nithrol's roar resounded once more. Some things are better left buried, hidden in the darkest recesses of existence, Nithrol said with a tone of gravitas. Her gaze was resolute, emphasizing the magnitude of their dilemma. It was clear she had a deep and unsettling familiarity with Zariel. Gaia and Elidor exchanged worried glances, realizing that their situation was more dire than they had imagined. If you break him out of his cage, hundreds of innocent children and people will suffer and die, Nithrol continued, her voice tinged with anguish. You can't save Cindy by releasing that monstrosity. Sometimes, it's better to let one child die than to allow hundreds more to suffer such a fate. Fuck that. I won't let Cindy die, not in a million years. I will find a way to save her, and if that means breaking him out, I will do it with or without your help, Gaia declared resolutely. Nithrol understood that Gaia was unyielding in her determination, and trying to persuade her otherwise would be futile. We must discuss this in person. I hope to make you see reason when I share more about Zariel and the god he once served, Nithrol stated, emphasizing Zariel's past allegiance to Forcrux. There was an underlying mystery surrounding Zariel's imprisonment, and Gaia was about to uncover it through Nithrol's revelations. Chapter 1106, On to the Next Kingdom in the Realm of Gods. 15 days had slipped by since the daring heist in Eden's Garden. After thoroughly thrashing Barug and his henchmen, Michael had ensured the safe exit of his crew and then expertly refined the stolen alchemical goods into valuable pills and potions. At that moment, he found himself seated in an opulent restaurant renowned for its delectable orc cuisine. As Michael savored a bite of the sumptuous honey-glazed chicken, a female orc maid approached his table with a warm smile. She couldn't help but admire the confident aura that surrounded him. "How is the honey chicken, sir?" she inquired politely. Michael, his charming smile captivating the orc maiden, nodded approvingly. "It's fantastic, absolutely delightful," he replied with genuine appreciation. The restaurant itself was a masterpiece of elegance, with intricate wooden carvings adorning the walls, soft, dim lighting casting a warm ambience, and lush greenery providing a natural touch. The maids and waiters glided gracefully among the tables, ensuring that every guest received impeccable service in this refined establishment. The orc maid, her attention undivided, asked with a courteous tone, "Is there anything else you'd like, sir?" Before Michael could respond, his sharp eyes caught sight of two figures approaching his table, both wearing hoods that concealed their faces. It was none other than Elmer and Vilnius. Michael maintained his calm composure, nodding to the orc maid. "Yes, please. I'd like 2 more plates of this exquisite honey chicken and a glass of your famous cold apple juice for me," he ordered. The orc maid acknowledged his request with a nod, her green-skinned features reflecting a polite demeanor as she said, "Of course, sir. I'll bring that right away." As she turned to leave, Michael gestured at Elmer and Vilnius to take the seats opposite him. "Join me," Michael invited them, a secretive smile dancing on his lips. "Vilnius," Michael began, his voice tinged with anticipation, "I hope you've brought me my cut from the heist." Vilnius nodded, a sly grin playing on his face as he slid a silver space ring across the table toward Michael. With a satisfied gleam in his eyes, Vilnius explained, "I've fenced all those pills and potions in the black market. We made a whopping 3 million gold coins from the entire haul." Michael raised an eyebrow, impressed. Good work. And the underworld? 20% cut to Vilnius bosses, whom he never met, irked Michael in the wrong way. However, it was a necessary payment to avoid an unnecessary battle. If Michael was stronger, he could have refused to pay them. But since it wasn't the case, Michael had to swallow the loss. Ah, you know the drill, Vilnius replied. 20% off the top, as always. That's 600,000 gold coins gone right there. Michael calculated quickly. So, we're left with 2,400,000 gold coins. What about our crew and the rest of the gang? Vilnius leaned in and whispered, 30% of the total, which is 900,000 gold coins, is tucked away in that silver ring for you. The rest, shared between Elmer, our crew, and the rest of the gang. Michael smiled, his fingers tracing the edge of the ring. Excellent work, Vilnius. You've earned your keep. Michael leaned back in his chair, a look of mild irritation crossing his face. I don't like that 20% going to the underworld and those secret bosses of yours, Vilnius. But well, let that slide for now. Vilnius nodded in agreement. Sometimes, it's better to keep the peace, boss. Michael shifted his attention to Elmer. What about Barug? Did he give you any trouble? Elmer leaned in, his voice hushed. The entire Eden's Garden army is out searching for you, boss. It's dangerous to be out in the open like this, right under their noses. Don't worry, Elmer. Eden's Garden will be looking everywhere except their own territory. They'll assume we've fled the kingdom. It's better to hide in plain sight, my friend. Michael chuckled softly, a glint of amusement in his eyes. Michael leaned in, his voice lowered to a hushed tone. Now listen carefully. I have to leave Durin for a few weeks. Don't do anything while I'm away. Lay low and keep your heads down. Since the Harvest Festival is coming to an end, don't come into the city unless you want to get caught. Soon, I will contact you both for another heist. Elmer raised an eyebrow. Are you going to case the place? A sly smile played on Michael's lips. Good guess. What's our target this time? Vilnius inquired, his voice tinged with both enthusiasm and caution. Michael's recent successful heist had left Vilnius in awe, making him regard Michael as a golden goose. Michael's response was cryptic. Curiosity killed the cat, Vilnius. Turning his attention back to Elmer, Michael continued, Elmer, I need you to find everything you can about Seraphine crystals. I heard there is a temple of Seraphine in the kingdom, so I would start looking there. Elmer's brows furrowed upon hearing Michael's request regarding Seraphine. The goddess of information held significant importance within the pantheon, known for her vast network of worshippers and her rare practice of visiting them once or twice a year. Seraphine crystals? You're not planning to rob them, are you? Vilnius whispered in shock, his voice barely above a murmur. Stealing from Eden's Garden is one thing, but swiping a goddess property? That's asking for suicide, Vilnius growled, suppressing his fear. Michael could see the intense terror in Vilnius' eyes. Even a brute like Vilnius wasn't foolish enough to attempt a theft involving a goddess' belongings. Judging by Vilnius' expression, if Michael pushed him further, Vilnius might either fight to the death or outright refuse to participate. I think you should take a look at, you're fortunate we're in public. Otherwise, I'd have kicked your stupid ass, Michael threatened, a sinister smile on his lips. But before Vilnius could retort, the Orcish waitress approached them, bearing 2 plates of golden honey chicken. Here you go, my lords, she said. Is there anything else you'd like to try? She inquired. However, Michael shook his head. No, just bring us the bill, please, he requested. Just give me a moment, the waitress replied before departing to prepare their bill. I only said to gather information about those crystals, not to steal them, Michael clarified. Upon hearing his words, Elmer and Vilnius couldn't help but sigh in relief. Elmer, you're to learn everything about those crystals and the temple. Just gather information, no stealing, Michael instructed before the waitress returned with the bill. She gently placed it on the table and looked at Michael. "Here is your bill, my lord." Michael reached for the bill but then gestured toward Elmer and Vilnius. "Actually, could you give it to them?" Vilnius frowned at Michael's request, clearly not pleased with the idea. "No worries," Michael said with a smile. "This one's on them," he told the waitress. Vilnius sighed and reluctantly handed over a pouch of gold coins to the Orcish waitress. She took the pouch with a polite nod and headed to the counter to settle their bill. Vilnius couldn't hide his irritation as he watched the waitress leave with their gold coins. His gaze shot daggers at Michael. He felt a burning anger within him. They had just completed a successful heist, and even though John had earned a substantial amount, he hadn't bothered to cover the restaurant bill, not even for what he had consumed himself. In Vilnius' mind, it was a matter of principle. They had worked hard for their share of the earnings, and it was expected, at the very least, that Michael would treat them to a meal after all that. Yet, here they were, not only paying for their own meals but also covering the cost of food they hadn't even ordered. Vilnius hated the feeling of being taken advantage of, especially after the risk they had taken in the heist. As she walked away, Michael leaned in, his voice low. "Don't forget what I said, both of you. I'll contact you soon." Michael casually patted Vilnius on the head as he stood up, a smug grin playing on his lips. With a slow, deliberate sip of his cold apple juice, he strolled out of the restaurant without a care in the world, leaving his comrades to settle the bill. As Michael disappeared from view, Vilnius couldn't contain his frustration any longer. "What an asshole," he muttered under his breath, his voice laden with annoyance. Elmer, who had been observing the scene with amusement, couldn't help but chuckle at Vilnius' remark. It was a chuckle that further fueled Vilnius' anger. As Michael stepped out of the restaurant into the bustling crowd, Pink's voice buzzed in his earpiece. "Gilrud is waiting for you at the Runemaster's Guild," Pink informed him. 15 more days until the auction, Ghost. "Once we get our hands on that book, we can officially start planning Raynar's assassination," she added with determination. Michael continued to walk through the lively streets, taking casual sips from his apple juice as he listened to Pink's insights. "Don't get too confident, Pink. We still don't know for sure if that book holds the information we need," Michael cautioned. If he had the immense fortune of 3 billion badass points, he could simply obtain the necessary information from the system. However, he lacked both the points and a quick method to acquire them. Therefore, the plan was to steal the book written by an angel of Seshit, the goddess of wisdom. Dagon and the orcs in Durin seem to think it's valuable. I'm willing to bet it contains information on how to slay a god. Otherwise, Dagon's minions wouldn't be so eager to get their hands on it, Pink explained, her voice oozing confidence. But it won't be as straightforward as robbing Eden's garden. The Divine Towers, the auctioneers of the book, are one of the most formidable guilds in this world. They have state-of-the-art defense arrays and several cultivators in the soul ignition realm. If we're going to do this, we need to be at our best. Otherwise, you're as good as dead, Pink warned Michael. "Ah, auctions, they bring back memories," Michael mused, reminiscing about the auctions he attended in the mortal realm with Gaia. These events were always rife with intrigue and offered the chance to acquire immensely powerful items. Michael was both curious about the upcoming auction and excited about the challenge of stealing the book. As Michael continued his conversation with Pink, he arrived at a magnificent tower made entirely of gleaming white marble. The building was adorned with intricate glowing runes. Above a grand entrance, a wooden sign hung proudly, reading Runemaster's Guild in elegant script. Michael couldn't help but admire the grandeur of the guild building. He chuckled softly and remarked to Pink, "This Runemaster's Guild looks quite beautiful, doesn't it?" Pink's voice responded promptly in his earpiece, "It certainly is, Ghost. It's one of the few structures in this world that brought together the skills and craftsmanship of elves, orcs, and dwarves. A testament to the power of cooperation and a shared goal." Michael nodded in agreement, appreciating the significance of the guild's construction. "Let's go meet Gilrut and Vidora," Michael said as he walked the stairs to meet Gilrut. Chapter 1107, Kingdom of Sagespire I Chapter 1107 Kingdom of Sagespire I With a sense of purpose, Michael entered the Runemaster's Guild. The interior was a spacious hall with high ceilings, adorned with enchanting runes etched into the marble walls, which pulsed with a soft, ethereal glow. In the center of the hall, groups of orcs huddled around thick books, engrossed in deep discussions about runic magic. As he made his way further inside, Michael noticed a series of portraits hanging on the walls. They depicted great orc runemasters from different eras, as well as a few distinguished elves who had contributed to the guild's history. Each portrait was a testament to the rich legacy of the guild and the powerful knowledge it held. Not wanting to waste any time, Michael approached a counter where a young female orc with sharp, intelligent eyes stood. He politely inquired, "I'm here to meet Runemaster Gilrut." The young orc, whose nameplate read Eshka, looked at Michael curiously. "May I have your name, please?" Michael replied smoothly, "John." Eshka nodded and gave him a warm smile. "Very well, young Master John. Runemaster Gilrut is expecting you on the second floor. Take the stairs to your right, and you'll find his chamber at the end of the hallway." Michael expressed his gratitude with a nod and followed Eshka's directions, ascending the stairs to meet Gilrut and Vidora. Upon reaching the second floor, Michael found himself standing in front of a wooden door adorned with intricate runes and designs. "Come in," he knocked, and a deep, resonant voice from within instructed him to enter. Pushing the door open, Michael stepped into the chamber. It was a room filled with scrolls and books with a fireplace in the corner. In the center of the chamber, Vidora coiled itself gracefully atop a jade table. Behind the table sat Runemaster Gilrut. His piercing gaze locked onto Michael as he entered. Gilrut frowned deeply and began, "Do you know anything about the robbery that occurred in Eden's garden?" Michael, wearing an expression of polite curiosity, shrugged casually. "Robbery in Eden's garden? I had no idea." His response seemed genuinely puzzled, as though he had no prior knowledge of the heist that had taken place in the realm's renowned alchemical sanctuary. "Took you long enough," Iag quipped as they flapped their tiny wings and perched on Michael's shoulder. "We learned so much about our kind and the artificially bred hydras," Sarba added, their tone full of hope and excitement. Michael gently nudged Sarba's tiny head before turning his attention back to Gilrut. "Is everything ready?" Michael inquired. "Yeah, I know you apparently have no idea what happened in Eden's garden, but you still need to be careful. Just in case," Gilrut replied skeptically, his gaze suggesting that he didn't entirely believe Michael had no involvement in the recent heist. Gilrut continued, "The portal gate is downstairs. I've set it up to open a gateway to the Runemaster's Guild in Sagespire." Sagespire was the domain of Seshet, the goddess of wisdom. "You're attending the Divine Towers auction, I assume?" Gilrut asked. Michael nodded in confirmation. "It seems like several of my colleagues will also attend the event," Gilrut added with a hearty chuckle. "Any idea what they're trying to buy?" Michael inquired. Gilrut's laughter continued as he replied, "Everyone thinks we share everything, but the reality is, we only share after we finish a new rune or a project. Until then, we safeguard our research and everything related to it with our lives." Michael knew that what the orcs were attempting to purchase was a secret. However, thanks to Pink's interactions with the Runemasters while they were inebriated, they had learned that the orcs were seeking a particular book written by Seshet's angel, believed to contain deeper knowledge about the gods. "I'll see for myself," Michael responded. "I wish I could give you a token to enter the auction. But I don't have any. It seems like you need to get one." "If I were you, I'd try buying one in the black market," Gilrut advised. Michael nodded thoughtfully. He could have easily acquired a token from Vilnius, but he preferred to keep his whereabouts as secret as possible. Besides, he was confident in his ability to purchase a token in Sagespire. As Michael followed Gilrut downstairs, they encountered a young female orc who wore round glasses perched on her nose. She had shoulder-length black hair, and her scholarly attire gave her an intellectual air. "Ah, Gilrut, there you are," she said with close familiarity, a warm smile on her face. "Don't forget to come to the Temple of Naribo later this evening. We'll be discussing those runic enhancements." Gilrut nodded in acknowledgement of their plans. The female orc then turned her attention to Michael and raised an eyebrow. And who's this? A human friend, Gilrut? That's rather unusual. Gilrut chuckled and patted Michael on the back. This is John, the one who assisted me at the Ridion funds. Recognition flashed in the young orc's eyes. You're the one who risked your life to save the hostages, aren't you? Her voice held a tone of genuine gratitude. Thank you for what you did. Michael offered a polite smile. It was the right thing to do. Nice to meet you. Mika pouted playfully, looking up at Gilrut. You didn't introduce me to your friend, Gilrut. Don't be so stingy. Gilrut sighed with an amused shake of his head. My apologies, John. This is Mika, a fellow runemaster. Mika, meet John. Mika turned her attention back to Michael and gave him a sultry look. Pleasure to meet you, John. Maybe I'll see you later. She added a suggestive wink before turning away, her departure filled with allure. Gilrut bid farewell to Mika and excused himself. As they continued their journey to the portal gate, Michael couldn't help but chuckle at the encounter. Seems like you have some interesting friends, Gilrut. The orc rune expert chuckled as well. Mika's one of a kind. She's a genius when it comes to runic enhancements, though. You'll see. Iag chuckled mischievously, flapping her tiny wings. She practically threw you a doomy look, Sarba joined in, adding to the teasing. Yeah, how would that even work? How does a human and an orc have, you know? Sarba trailed off, looking at Michael with a mischievous grin. Kane chimed in, if Gaia were here, she'd turn her into mincemeat for looking at you like that. Gilrut overheard their conversation and asked, Gaia? Do you mean the goddess of monsters? Michael sighed with a hint of nostalgia in his smile. Yes, that's her. Gilrut couldn't help but inquire further, do you miss her? Michael's smile remained, but there was a touch of sadness in his eyes as he replied simply, every day. Finally, they arrived before a thick copper door adorned with intricate runes. Gilrut placed his hands on the door, causing the runes to light up with a soft, mystical glow. The copper door slowly creaked open, revealing a massive silver teleportation portal beyond it. The silver frame of the portal was adorned with countless more runes, and a couple of orcs were busy working in the room, meticulously adjusting the magical machinery that powered the portal. Michael's eyes were drawn to the centerpiece of the portal room, a giant purple celestial crystal. It sat at the center of a glowing magical chakra, radiating an otherworldly energy that hummed with power. Gilrut turned to Michael and said, this portal will take you directly to Sage Spire, the domain of Seshet. Remember, the Divine Towers auction is a grand event, so stay vigilant. As Michael stood there, a couple of young orcs approached Gilrut, greeting him with respect. One of them said, Master Gilrut, everything is prepared as per your instructions. Gilrut nodded and instructed the young orcs, activate the portal. The young orcs turned their attention to Michael, looking slightly surprised but not daring to ask any questions. They hurried toward the portal and began drawing intricate runes in the air with their hands. Michael sensed the energy fluctuations in the room intensify, and the giant celestial crystal at the center of the portal channeled more power, glowing brighter and brighter. The runes on the silver frame surrounding the portal lit up one by one as a spatial vortex started forming within it. Gilrut turned to Michael and said, you can step into the vortex whenever you're ready. It will take you directly to the Sage Spire Runemaster's Guild. When you arrive, hand over this jade coin to whomever meets you on the other side. They will know you came from here. Michael took the jade coin, his fingers brushing its cool surface. When you finish everything in Sage Spire, you can use this coin to return here. But remember, if you lose this coin, they won't let you use the portal, Gilrut warned Michael. Michael nodded, his steps deliberate as he approached the swirling portal. There was an unmistakable mix of excitement and trepidation in his gut, as if he were stepping into something of profound significance. Whatever you're going to do, I wish you the best of luck, Gilrut said with a warm smile. Michael responded with a pat on Gilrut's shoulder, a gesture that left the young apprentices nearby curious about the identity of the man who seemed so familiar with the renowned runemaster. N/O/V/E//L/B 1. N. Take care, Gilrut. Don't get yourself killed, Michael quipped as they neared the portal. He felt the portal's irresistible tug as he drew a deep breath, preparing to step through. Gilrut leaned closer, his voice softening. Take care, God of Darkness, Gilrut whispered. Michael offered a nod before disappearing into the swirling vortex, leaving the onlookers in awe and anticipation. As Michael vanished into the swirling portal, he remained blissfully unaware that this would be the final time he'd set eyes on Gilrut. The future held an unforeseen, cruel twist for the runemaster, yet neither of them had any idea of the impending fate that would alter Gilrut's life forever. With the uncertainty of what lay ahead, Michael embarked on this journey, determined to acquire something that could potentially shift the balance in his ongoing war against the Pantheon. Chapter 1108, Kingdom of Sagespire 2. Chapter 1108, Kingdom of Sagespire II. Upon stepping through the portal, Michael experienced a rapid change of scenery. In the blink of an eye, he found himself standing in the midst of a magnificent marble hall, where rows of tables were laden with books and scrolls, resembling a vast library. As he observed his new surroundings, a young orc, clad in gleaming metal armor, approached him. Do you feel that? Sarba whispered, her voice tinged with concern. Michael sensed a peculiar sensation in the air, as if something had departed from him. There's no energy in the air, Sarba added in a hushed tone. Show me the token, the young orc demanded, his voice cold and distant. Michael extended his hand, revealing the coin he held. The orc scrutinized the coin, examining it closely before nodding. Seems legit. Welcome to Goldspire, capital of the Kingdom of Sagespire, he recited in a manner that suggested he'd uttered those words countless times. Thank you, Michael replied politely. You can proceed to the lobby through that door, the orc pointed towards a door in the corner of the hall. One of the assistants will assist you with any questions you may have. Well, I was hoping for a warmer welcome, but we'll have to make do with that grumpy orc, I suppose, Iag grumbled. Ignoring Iag's complaints, Michael focused on the strange atmosphere around him. He could sense no energy, yet his own powers remained intact. He realized he could cast spells if he wished, but there was an undeniable sense of peculiarity in the air. Let's move on from here, Michael suggested before making his way toward the indicated door. Upon opening the door, Michael stepped into a brilliantly lit hall, bathed in the warm embrace of morning sun rays. The vast space was abuzz with activity as people from diverse races bustled about, deeply engrossed in discussions, examining the numerous portraits adorning the walls, depictions of renowned runes and runemasters. Amidst the lively scene, emerald-green-robed orcs and young female elves went about their duties, assisting visitors with their inquiries and offering guidance. Michael's eyes were drawn to a particularly beautiful young elf, gracefully approaching him. With a friendly smile, she introduced herself. Greetings, traveler. I am Lyria, a steward of the guild. How may I assist you today? Her voice carried a gentle and welcoming tone, making Michael feel at ease in this unfamiliar place. Michael promptly activated his eyes of darkness, surveying the surroundings, only to perceive the same green aura enveloping everyone in the hall. I'm new to Sagespire, Michael began, and I can't help but notice this peculiar sensation as if I've lost my connection to the energy around me. Lyria maintained her kind smile, her demeanor patient and welcoming. Ah, that would be the divine array at work, my dear friend. Within the sacred domain of Her Holiness Seshet, all are considered equal. Here, the only distinction lies in one's knowledge, not their cultivation stages, she explained, shedding light on the reason behind the unusual feeling Michael experienced. Lyria elaborated, in Sagespire, there are no cultivators. Those who arrive here from other domains find their cultivation temporarily suppressed, leveling the playing field. This ensures that unnecessary conflicts and disputes are greatly reduced. Michael, intrigued by this unique approach, inquired further, but if there are no battles of strength, how do people here resolve their disagreements? In even the most peaceful of kingdoms, conflicts tend to arise one way or another. Lyria continued to explain, while most conflicts find resolution through debates and intellectual battles. Her Holiness Seshet values wisdom and knowledge greatly. However, she is not blind to the fact that some disagreements cannot be settled through words alone, and at times, battles must be fought with strength and steel. Intrigued by this revelation, Michael probed further. What does that mean, exactly? Lyria clarified, it means there is an arena, for those who prefer to settle their disputes through physical combat. However, it's considered a last resort, and such confrontations are closely monitored and controlled. Seshet encourages peaceful resolutions whenever possible. Michael couldn't help but find the whole arrangement intriguing. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully and said, interesting. Lyria, with a relieved expression, chimed in, I hope you stay away from the arena and find whatever you're seeking here in Sagespire peacefully. Michael smiled, teasingly adding, I'm not here to pick fights, if that's what you're afraid of. I've come to attend the Divine Tower's auction. Lyria let out a sigh of relief and said, ah, then you must be a runemaster? Michael shook his head, grinning, and replied, more of a blacksmith, actually. Lyria looked at him with surprise, her gaze traveling across his muscular and imposing figure. Well, that certainly makes sense. Michael chuckled at her response, and Lyria continued, in that case, you should visit the Blacksmith Guild. It's just a couple of blocks from here. Thank you, Michael said, offering a friendly smile. I'll do that. Goodbye for now. With their brief conversation concluded, Michael headed out of the guild hall, ready to explore Sagespire and make the most of his time in this new realm. As Michael stepped out of the Runemaster's Guild, he was greeted by a sight of sheer elegance. The street before him was a symphony of grandeur and intellect. Ornate fountains adorned with intricate sculptures sprayed crystal-clear water into the air, creating a refreshing ambience. Paved pavements, lined with trees, stretched gracefully in both directions, providing a serene pathway for pedestrians. Most of the people strolling along this charming street held books, scrolls, or various forms of written knowledge. It was evident that in Sagespire, learning and wisdom were highly prized. Carriages moved through the streets with a peaceful rhythm, their horses clip-clopping on the well-maintained cobblestone roads. Each building that lined the street possessed its own unique style of architecture, showcasing the diversity of cultures and races that had contributed to the city's rich tapestry. Go check out the Blacksmith Guild. We have 15 days to the auction and no token to enter the auction. The Blacksmith Guild might be worth checking out, Sarba recommended. Ag, perched on his other shoulder, added her own perspective. And the arena. I'm more interested in the battle arena. Taking their advice to heart, Michael embarked on his exploration of Sagespire, his thoughts now focused on seeking out the Blacksmith Guild. As Michael walked along the bustling streets of Sagespire, he couldn't help but overhear the animated conversations of the city's diverse populace. The air was filled with palpable excitement and anticipation for the upcoming Divine Tower auction. A group of young men, their faces glowing with enthusiasm, chatted amongst themselves. I heard they have some ancient elven tomes up for bidding this time. I'm saving every coin for that. A trio of women, each holding a collection of scrolls, discussed their potential purchases. The Runemaster Guild rumored to have crafted some powerful runes. We mustn't miss them. Michael observed with surprise the rich tapestry of races represented in the city. Elves, orcs, dwarves, halflings, and humans mingled in the streets, each group fervently engaged in discussions about the auction. A halfling, standing on a crate to be heard, chimed in excitedly. And the dwarven artifacts. Can you imagine having one in your possession? Michael couldn't help but smile at the excitement of the crowd. The diversity in Sagespire was not just in its people but also in the shared passion for knowledge and rare treasures, all converging towards the impending auction. As Michael strolled further down the elegant street, he soon noticed a distinct change in the atmosphere. The soft rustling of leaves and the murmur of conversation were gradually replaced by the resounding clang of metal upon metal. The air grew warmer, tinged with the distinct scent of heated iron. Turning a corner, the source of the cacophony became clear. Before him stretched a long, narrow street flanked on both sides by bustling forges. Muscular orcs and stout dwarves toiled amidst roaring flames, their hammers striking hot metal with rhythmic precision. From the forges came a symphony of shouts and commands. "Pass me the quenching bucket, Hrothgar." One orc yelled, while a dwarf barked orders at his apprentice, "Steady now, Glimmer. The blade's edge must be true." At the end of this fiery avenue stood the Blacksmith Guild, an imposing building with walls of deep, earthy brown. Its large, rectangular windows allowed the golden glow of firelight to dance across the cobblestone street. The guild's entrance was adorned with a massive oak door, expertly carved with intricate designs that hinted at the artistry within. As Michael wandered the streets, he couldn't help but be drawn to the warmth of the forges and the harmonious symphony of clanging metal. The rhythmic pounding of hammers and the rhythmic dance of blacksmiths at their craft stirred something within him. "I miss my forge," Michael sighed wistfully, his eyes fixed on the diligent blacksmiths. The blacksmiths and their apprentices were engrossed in their work, their attention solely on the creation of their weapons and armor, too absorbed to notice the newcomer. NOV-E-L-B/I. N, for a kingdom that prides itself on peace and intellect, Iag observed, "This level of weapon production does seem rather contradictory." Sarba chimed in with agreement, "Indeed. Lyria's words about the kingdom's values don't quite match the reality we see here." "So what's the play here?" asked Iag. "I don't know yet," Michael confessed, his gaze fixed on the towering Blacksmith Guild at the street's end. "Let's check out this Blacksmith Guild. Perhaps they have something to offer us." As Michael approached the imposing Blacksmith Guild, his path was intercepted by two armored guards stationed at the guild's entrance. One was a sturdy dwarf, and the other a stocky human, both clad in formidable armor. Their expressions were stern as they blocked his way, and the dwarf, with his gruff demeanor, spoke first. "If you're here to buy something, you'd best look for one of the smiths down the street." "Can't I just look around?" he politely inquired. The guards exchanged a glance, and the human guard replied, "Sorry, friend. The master blacksmiths are currently occupied with recruiting new talent. If you're interested in exploring the guild, you'll have to return at a later time." Michael had another idea in mind. "What if I want to join this recruitment?" he asked, his tone suggesting genuine interest. The human guard, displaying a hint of skepticism, questioned, "Are you a blacksmith?" Without hesitation, Michael confidently affirmed, "Yes, I am." The dwarf guard, more experienced in discerning the truth from a person's hand, spoke up. "Show us your palm, then. Let's see if it bears the marks of one who's wielded swords and hammers." Michael offered a warm smile and extended his palm for inspection. The dwarf scrutinized the lines and calluses etched into Michael's hand, a testament to years spent mastering the craft. After a moment's examination, the dwarf nodded approvingly. "You're free to enter the guild, friend. May your time here be fruitful." Once Michael had entered the Blacksmith Guild, the human guard let out a bemused sigh, clearly perplexed by the dwarf's ability to discern a person's profession from their palm. "I still don't understand how you can tell if someone's a blacksmith just by looking at their palm," the human guard admitted with a hint of frustration. The dwarf, on the other hand, couldn't help but chuckle at his colleague's skepticism. "Ah, lad, a palm tells a story, it does. The lines, the calluses, the scars, all of them speak of a person's trade." The human guard shook his head, maintaining his doubts. "Well, that young man didn't strike me as a blacksmith." The dwarf continued to wear a knowing smile as he replied, "That young lad's palm told the tale of someone who spent far too much time wielding swords and hammers. That you're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.